Worthless, Aunt Clara muttered under her breath as she strode past me, not even attempting to lower her voice. I glanced up from my sketchbook just in time to see the disdain written across her face before she turned away. I looked down again quickly, gripping my pencil tighter while trying to ignore the knot forming in my stomach. I sat tucked away in the back corner of my aunt and uncle's overcrowded living room, sketching quietly during our family's monthly gathering. All around me, chatter and laughter echoed off the walls as my relatives socialized, doused in a healthy glow of wine. I did my best to make myself small and unnoticed. It wasn't difficult. I'd had 15 years of practice. "Did you see Theo's last game, though?" My mom's voice rang out loudly from the kitchen. 2 touchdowns. They won by a landslide. A chorus of cheers and congratulations erupted in response. I snuck a glance across the room at my cousin holding court over a captive audience, grinning from ear to ear. His Letterman jacket hung proudly over the back of his chair, trophy glinting under the lights. I looked back at my sketchbook just as Aunt Clara walked by again. She stopped short this time, narrowing her eyes as she spotted my work. "Still scribbling away as usual, I see," she noted in a tone that landed somewhere between curiosity and disgust. "Don't you have homework to be doing or something?" I pressed my lips together, staring intently at my paper. "I finished it already." Well, I suppose it's harmless enough," she dismissed with a wave of her ring-laden hand before walking away. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. Her words echoed in my ears. Worthless, harmless. I knew she thought both about me and my art. Somewhere deep down, I feared the worst part was she could be right. I jumped as a gentle hand grasped my shoulder. I looked up to see Uncle Max's kind eyes peering down at me through his thick glasses. "Don't listen to her, Lila," he said softly. "I think what you create is lovely." I managed a small smile in return, comforted more by the solidarity of his gaze than the compliment itself. Uncle Max was the only one who ever bothered to look closely at my drawings. He seemed to understand the pangs of being overlooked amid the symphony of other people's noise. As he gave my shoulder a supportive squeeze before walking away, I realized this monthly gathering marked the 3rd in a row he had offered me those same gentle words. Don't listen to her. His reassuring gestures were becoming something of a ritual, I mused. One I appreciated more deeply each time. The lively hum of the party clambered on around me, but I felt cocooned by Uncle Max's kindness. I allowed myself to become reabsorbed by the strokes of my pencil, applying darker depth and definition to the portrait emerging on my page. I didn't hear Aunt Claire approach until her shadow was upon me. "I swear, Lila, it's like you live in your own little world sometimes," she scoffed, craning her neck to catch a glimpse of my work. "What are you making that's got you so tuned out anyway?" Before I could respond, she snatched the sketchbook from my lap, already laughing. "Oh, honey, when are you going to grow up?" she cried loudly, her shrill voice cutting through the din. "You can't pay the bills with silly little doodles like this." Faces turned in our direction as heat flooded my cheeks. I stared hard at the floor, willing myself not to cry as a few stray snickers arose. Aunt Clara carelessly dropped my sketchbook back in my lap and strode away, gravelly laugh still spilling from her lips. "Why put in so much effort for something so worthless?" she called over her shoulder. The words pierced my fragile pride, every letter another knife twist to my heart. I hugged my sketchbook tightly to my chest, barely holding back tears. Maybe she was right after all. "Pass the potatoes, please," Aunt Clara demanded, her shrill voice cutting through the chatter around the dinner table as she leaned back in her seat. I quietly handed her the platter, avoiding eye contact and hoping to avoid provoking another of her cutting remarks. It was Thanksgiving, after all. The one day of the year our family insisted on coming together despite the simmering tensions. My hope of getting through dinner unscathed was short-lived. As usual, the conversation quickly turned to comparing my lackluster achievements to Theo's latest accolades. Theo made varsity quarterback as a sophomore. Uncle Ralph boasted loudly between bites of turkey and stuffing. Youngest one in years. "He's the real deal." A round of hearty congratulations followed as Theo grinned, basking in the glow of adoration and free-flowing wine. "I told you he'd be the star of the family," Aunt Clara joined in gleefully. "Brains and talent, he has it all," Not to mention that beautiful girlfriend of his. She let out an exaggerated sigh. My, they will have the cutest baby someday. Can't you just picture it? More laughter and smiles of agreement rippled around the long table. I sank lower in my chair and pushed a few peas around my plate, face burning. His life did seem pretty perfect, I admitted resentfully to myself. Quarterback, straight A's, leggy blonde doting on his every word. With a dejected exhale, I let my eyes wander around the room, carefully avoiding the golden boy himself. As an involuntary reflex, my gaze landed on my sketchbook, peeking out from my bag in the corner behind Uncle Max's wingback chair. Just like its owner, tucked away, forgotten, worthless. At that moment, Aunt Clara's grating voice cut through my gloom. It's such a shame not all young people live up to their potential. My eyes snapped to hers at the other end of the table. Her expression feigned sympathy, but I saw the malice flashing behind it. Poor Lila just drifts through life. I don't know how she'll ever amount to anything meaningful without some sparks flying up in that head of hers. Cold dread crept down my spine at the thinly veiled insult. Before I could open my mouth to respond, I felt a large hand firmly grasp my knee under the table. Uncle Max subtly shook his head, silently warning me not to engage. I bristled in frustration but held my tongue. Max gave my leg a supportive squeeze before removing his hand. Well, what about David? Aunt Edna chimed in nervously, attempting to reroute the conversation down safer terrain. How's that mathematics doctorate coming along? As the attention shifted, I quietly excused myself from the table. I strode swiftly to the corner and snatched up my sketchbook, fleeing to the dark solitude of the back porch. The cold night air bit at my wet cheeks, but I paid it no mind. I sank down on the porch steps, angrily swiping away tears. How dare she? I fumed, hands clenching and unclenching. Who is she to assume she knows my potential? After several shuddering breaths, my rage began to morph into despair. What if Aunt Clara was right? Maybe I would never amount to anything. I gazed forlornly down at my latest sketch, a portrait of Aunt Edna. The intricate details in her kind, wrinkled face had taken me hours to perfect. But what was the point if no one cared? It was worthless, just like me. A warm weight settled around my slumped shoulders, Uncle Max's wool coat. He eased down next to me with a soft groan, eyeglasses glinting in the moonlight. We sat without a word for several moments, my uneven breath sounding loud in the stillness. Finally, Max broke the heavy silence. Don't listen to her poison, Lila, he urged gently. She's just threatened by what she can't understand. He tucked a stray lock of hair behind my ear. But I understand, and I believe your art means something, just like you do. Tears spilled down my face once more, but this time they were tears of gratitude. I slipped quietly out the back door into the crisp night air, carefully closing it behind me before the sounds of the boisterous family gathering could follow me outside. I shrugged my jacket tighter around my shoulders against the chill. Autumn leaves crunched under my shoes as I made my way across the wide back porch and settled onto the wooden steps. Uncle Max and I had taken to meeting here, outside the stuffy, chaotic warmth of my aunt and uncle's home, where the family parties always took place. Here we could talk freely without judgmental ears listening in. Over the last few months since that painful Thanksgiving dinner, Max had become my ally and confidant. The back door creaked open, and I looked up to see Max's tall frame silhouetted in the golden light. He held up the pleated paper bag, clenched in his wrinkled hand, and waved it with a triumphant grin as he eased himself down beside me. Got them! Had to fight off Martha for the last package. He chuckled in his warm, gravelly tone. He pulled out 2 large sugar cookies, handing me one. I bit into the sweet icing with delight. Thanks, Uncle Max. You're the best. He smiled, his kind eyes twinkling behind his glasses in the dim glow of the porch light. I know they're your favorite. I figured you deserved something sweet after all that bitterness earlier. I sighed, smile fading. She's just never going to accept me, is she? Max shook his head. Oh, don't worry about Clara. She's set in her ways, but she's all talk. He gave my shoulder a reassuring pat. Now tell me what you've been up to. My mood lifted instantly. I applied to the Ridley Art Academy summer program. It's only a few weeks. But they have these amazing classes, and... Max held up a hand, eyes widening in surprise. Applied? Have you told your parents about this? I bit my lip, smile disappearing. No. Mom agrees with Aunt Clara that art is just silly hobby. They'd never take it seriously or support me. Max frowned, leaning back against the porch railing. He seemed to be turning something over in his mind. Lila, he finally said, your art, your dreams, they matter. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. He paused, brow furrowing in thought. In fact, I'd like to help, if you'll let me. I stared, confused but intrigued. Help how? Well, clearly, Clara controls the family purse strings, but there are other resources. He reached out and took my hand, giving it an encouraging squeeze. Let me fund your art academy tuition, anonymously, of course, he added with a conspiratorial wink. It can be our secret. My eyes widened in disbelief. What? Uncle Max, that's incredibly generous, but I could never ask you to. He held up a hand. You're not asking, I'm offering. I believe in you, Lila, and I want to invest in that talent of yours before anyone tries to snuff it out. His words brought tears to my eyes. After years of discouragement, someone was finally taking me and my art seriously. I threw my arms around his neck in an impulsive hug. Thank you, I choked out through my tears. I promise I won't waste this opportunity. Max chuckled, patting my back gently. Of course you won't. I expect a full portfolio of new pieces when you get back. He pulled away, holding me by the shoulders and gazing at me intently. Just promise me that from now on, you'll start listening to your own voice instead of theirs. Deal? I took a deep breath and wiped the remaining moisture from my eyes, feeling as if a tremendous weight had been lifted from my soul. Deal? Deal. I crept up the creaky attic steps as stealthily as I could, clutching my latest art supply store purchase. Even with Uncle Max generously funding my artistic pursuits in secret for the past few months, I still felt like a fugitive, sneaking around behind my family's back. But the flush of excitement I felt unboxing shiny new artist pastels made the whole cloak and dagger act worthwhile. I had discovered I loved working with color almost as much as Mom disapproved of my artistic dabbling, as she called it. I smiled to myself, lifting the basement trapdoor slowly. Better to ask her forgiveness later than permission now. Just as the door was about to latch silently behind me, a shrill voice bellowed up from below. Lila Grace, what in heaven's name are you doing up there? Aunt Clara's harsh tones echoed off the attic walls, causing me to jump. The pastels tumbled out of my hands, clattering down the steps along with my heart. Nothing, Aunt Clara, I stammered, scrambling to collect my forbidden treasures strewn across the aging floorboards before she ascended. My efforts were in vain, however, as her heavy footsteps soon thudded behind me. I wheeled around to find Clara glaring down at the vibrant sticks gripped in my hands, eyebrows raised. Wordlessly, she extended her palm. Sheepishly, I handed her the receipt, clutched in my other hand. Squinting through her bifocals, she examined it for several moments while I held my breath. $84.76, she finally exclaimed. You spent nearly $100 on coloring sticks? They're oil pastels, I corrected under my breath. Her sharp eyes snapped to mine. What was that? I shrank back against the chill wall. Nothing. I just used some extra babysitting money, that's all. Seems like quite a lot of babysitting, she said skeptically. And just what do you plan to do with these anyway? Before I could respond, the attic door unexpectedly swung open. We both turned to see Uncle Max mount the last step, slightly out of breath. There you both are. They're asking for you downstairs, Claire. He addressed my aunt lightly, but his eyes remained steadily locked with mine. Clara glanced between us, lips pursed in suspicion, but she merely let out an impatient huff before tossing the receipt to the floor. We're not done discussing your little shopping addiction, young lady, she snapped as she brushed past Max. Once her footsteps retreated, I let out the breath I had been holding. Thank you, I exhaled with relief. Max brushed aside my gratitude with a wave of his hand. Don't worry about her. Yet behind his casual tone, his brows knitted with concern. I sighed, sadness suddenly deflating my mood as I sunk down onto an old cedar chest. She's right, though. I can't keep sneaking around like this forever. I lifted my gaze to meet my uncle's kind eyes. Especially using money you work so hard for. It's too much, I confessed softly. Max crossed the room and crouched down in front of me, gently cupping my chin in his aged hand. Nonsense. That light I see ignite in you when you create is worth every penny. Don't let Clara make you feel otherwise, he urged. His voice took on an icy edge. And don't you dare give up. My eyes misted over with emotion. I covered his sturdy hand with my own trembling one. I won't, I promised in a whisper, as long as you believe in me. Max smiled then, a smile so warm and full of affection that in that moment I felt I could conquer anything. I paced the threadbare living room carpet, absently winding a lock of hair around my finger. The early morning sun streamed in through the crocheted curtains, glinting off the crystal vase on the coffee table. Usually the colorful wildflowers Aunt Edna lovingly arranged lifted my mood, but today I barely noticed them. "What's got you wearing a groove into my rug so early, child?" I spun to find Edna peering at me curiously from the doorway, already impeccably dressed for the day ahead despite the early hour. I smiled weakly, clearing my throat. "Just thinking about the regional young artist competition," I explained, aiming unsuccessfully for a casual tone. "The application deadline is at the end of the week." Edna nodded knowingly as she settled herself onto the overstuffed sofa. "Clara still refuses to support such nonsense, She made air quotes with her manicured fingers, eliciting a small chuckle from me despite the circumstances. My fleeting laughter quickly faded back into a grimace. "She said if I waste my time entering, I'm also wasting her money. Basically, she's threatening to cut me off if I apply." My shoulders slumped dejectedly at the memory of my aunt's cruel ultimatum from the night before. Before the defeat could fully settle across my face, I felt Edna's graceful hand under my chin, gently tilting my eyes back up to meet her earnest gaze. "Lila, has Clara ever created anything of beauty or value in her entire life?" she asked pointedly. I slowly shook my head, confused but captivated by the sudden fire in her tone. "No. Yet for some bizarre reason, she still believes she is entitled to have authority over yours," Edna continued. Her eyes softened then, brow creasing in motherly concern as she brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "Promise me you won't allow her to dictate your worth, sweetheart," she implored. "Don't sacrifice your talent to satisfy that bitter, jealous snake of a woman. She doesn't deserve that power over you." I blinked back, the hot tears suddenly burning behind my eyes. Overcome with emotion, I wrapped my arms around her slender shoulders. "Thank you, Aunt Edna," I whispered into her soft gray hair. In response, she squeezed me tightly, patting my back with her smooth hand. As we finally pulled apart, I caught sight of Uncle Max standing quietly in the doorway behind us. Our eyes met, a silent question hanging between us. "Well, what now?" I took a deep, shaky breath. Hope and fear dueled within me. But seeing the unwavering conviction shining from Max's gaze, I knew I only had one real option. I turned back to Edna with newfound resolve. "You're both right. She doesn't control me. I'm submitting my portfolio, with or without her approval." A slow grin spread across my uncle's wrinkled face. Edna let out a delighted laugh, lightly swatting my knee. "Atta girl!" Max pronounced proudly. He gestured to the unseen painting upstairs that he had secretly financed for my application. "Now, let's make sure they see exactly what they'll be missing out on." Buoyed by their belief in me, I marched from the room with fresh purpose fueling every step. I was through hiding myself and my art away. For the first time, I felt brave enough to stand up for my dreams, no matter the cost. I took a deep, centering breath as I pushed open the tall glass gallery doors. The familiar smells of paint, turpentine, and fresh lacquer washed over me, instantly sparking my creativity. I felt at home here among these floors and walls that showcased artistic vision instead of suppressing it. Unlike my own home, I thought ruefully. I wound through the maze of partition walls displaying the regional Young Artists Contest submissions, searching for my collection. My heels clicked crisply on the polished concrete floors, echoing through the cavernous space. Despite having captured first prize in the competition last month, the thrill of that victory had been short-lived. Oh sure, Edna and Max had celebrated exuberantly on my behalf, toasting my talent with a bottle of contraband champagne, but my parents could barely mutter a half-hearted congratulations through tight lips. Mother refused to even glance at the museum passes and tuition voucher the contest awarded me. And Aunt Clara, she had flown into such a jealous rage when she learned of my win that she stormed off in disgust, vowing to never speak to me again. Her reaction still stung, marring what should have been a shining moment of validation. I rounded a corner, and there suddenly were my paintings, a collection of vivid, abstract cityscapes titled Overlooked Beauty. I traced a gentle finger down the gilded plaque bearing my name, allowing myself a small, satisfied smile. No matter their reaction, this was still an incredible honor at just 18. These pieces represented my true vision, not anyone else's expectations of what art, or my future, should look like. My smile slipped as footsteps echoed behind me, followed by a grating chuckle that could only belong to one person. I steeled myself as Clara's scowl appeared over my shoulder in the painting's reflective glass. "Well, it's about time you grew up and started painting something worthwhile," she proclaimed with begrudging approval. Her critical eye assessed the building's luminous geometries and brooding alleyways. "At least these I can actually recognize as art, instead of that avant-garde nonsense you usually dirty a canvas with." I clenched my fists behind my back, holding back the acid retort on the tip of my tongue. As I met her baleful gaze in the glass, I realized defending my work was no longer needed. The prize ribbons did that for me now. I simply cleared my throat and gestured to a nearby painting of a crumbling liquor store glowing vibrantly against a stormy sky. "The buildings no one else notices often hold the most beauty inside," I offered mildly. "It's all about perspective." Clara narrowed her eyes, processing the subtle meaning behind my words. Before she could supply a scathing rebuttal, however, Max suddenly materialized beside us. "There you both are. Lila, the gallery director, is looking for you," he interjected smoothly, placing a proprietary hand on my shoulder. "The mayor wants to discuss commissioning a city mural. Shall we?" He guided me away without another glance at Clara's dumbfounded expression. As we walked, I felt lighter and more self-assured than I had in years. The Aunt Claras of the world would always try to hide my shine out of jealousy. But it was getting far harder to dim my inner light these days, especially with Uncle Max so devoted to stoking my creative fire. A waiter crossed in front of me, obscuring my view of the gallery's entrance for a moment. I tracked him impatiently with my eyes as he wove through the well-dressed crowd, offering champagne and hors d'oeuvres on a silver platter. When he finally moved aside, I caught sight of Aunt Clara making yet another dramatic entrance. I grimaced to myself behind my own champagne flute. Trust Clara to be fashionably late to an event celebrating someone else's success. She glided into the gallery in a slinky black dress more suited to a cocktail party than an art show, air-kissing the room as all eyes turned to admire her. I noticed more than a few men's gazes linger a bit too long on her overly accentuated curves as she held court. "Quite an eye-catching woman," Max commented discreetly as he appeared beside me, following my irritated gaze. "She knows it too," I muttered before taking another sip. "But let her preen. Tonight is about my art, not her." Max smiled and clinked his glass gently against mine. "I'll toast to that." Any further conversation was interrupted by the gallery director's amplified voice welcoming the crowd. I thanked her politely as she congratulated me on the turnout and praised my evocative urban scenes. As she moved away to confer briefly with the curator, Clara slinked up in her wake. "Well, congratulations, dear," she purred with mock sincerity, air-kissing my cheek. "Who knew your silly little pastime might actually lead somewhere?" Her patronizing smile didn't reach her eyes. I suppose beauty is subjective after all. I resisted the urge to wipe off her cloying lipstick. "How gracious of you to come, Aunt Clara," I replied evenly instead, "since I know how subjective creative pursuits can be for you." Clara's painted smile faded slightly. Before she could supply what was surely a scorching retort, the director returned to the microphone, bringing the chatter to a close. "Again, we are so pleased to showcase this promising young talent's unique perspective," she said, gesturing toward me. "It's clear Lila has a fresh, meaningful artistic vision, one that her Uncle Max should be very proud of cultivating." Murmurs of appreciation echoed from the audience along with a smattering of applause. Clara's head swiveled sharply between me and Max. Under the weight of her glare, understanding visibly dawned across her primped features, followed swiftly by outrage. But before she could cause a scene, I stepped forward, holding up a gracious hand to acknowledge the accolades. "Actually, my Aunt Clara deserves quite a lot of credit for the inspiration behind this collection," I interjected smoothly into the microphone. "In fact, the title, Overlooked Beauty, is an homage to her unique, perspective on my creative potential over the years. I turned to lock eyes with Clara, whose face had turned nearly purple. But true vision lies in those willing to look closer and nurture unseen gifts, not suppress them, regardless of popular opinion. I smiled benignly. Don't you agree, Aunt Clara? Her mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish under the weight of too many eyes and the hidden accusation in my words. For once it seemed Clara had no clever retort or searing glance to offer in return. I smiled wider. I thought so. Cheers to fresh vision. Then, I declared brightly, raising my glass. The crowd, oblivious to our true conversational undercurrents, echoed my toast eagerly, much to Aunt Clara's dismay. I stepped back to scrutinize my latest mural sketch, pencil smudges staining my hands. The city council had commissioned a stylized landscape to adorn the community center's remodeled facade. I wanted it to capture the neighborhood's vitality and cultural roots. As I reached for a rag to wipe the charcoal from my fingers, my phone vibrated loudly against the work table. I smiled involuntarily when I saw Uncle Max's face flash on the cracked screen. "Working hard as always," he exclaimed when I answered. His warm approval still caused a glow of pride to swell in my chest. "Just trying to do justice to the Irvington district," I replied, holding up my drawing to the light. "But it's getting there." "Well, make sure to take a break soon to eat," Max gently scolded. "We need to keep that brilliant artistic mind of yours fed, after all." I laughed. "I will, and thank you, Uncle Max." "You can thank me by letting me take you out tonight to celebrate properly," he insisted. "The whole family is getting together at Ambrosia, and I want to toast my world-famous niece." My smile faltered slightly. World-famous might be stretching it a bit, and honestly, I'd rather skip another tense family dinner if it's all the same to you. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I instantly regretted declining his sweet offer, but the idea of facing Aunt Clara and her scorn even now, months later, still made my stomach turn. The wounds from her resentment ran deep. Max cleared his throat gently. "Well, I understand if you're still feeling raw, but for what it's worth, Clara has been trying to make amends lately." I snorted in disbelief. "Clara doesn't do amends." "I'm serious," Max insisted. "She knows she behaved wretchedly. Don't you think she at least deserves a chance for old time's sake?" I bit my lip, considering. The genuine entreaty in his voice gave me pause. And he had a point. Holding grudges had never been in my nature. I sighed deeply. Okay, I'll be the bigger person, but I'm not promising anything more than basic civility." Max chuckled, clearly pleased. "That's all I ask. I'll swing by at 7 to get you. See you soon." I set down the phone with a reluctant smile. One tense dinner couldn't derail my newfound creative joy and confidence, and if Aunt Clara was genuinely ready to bury the hatchet, then maybe, just maybe, it was time I did too. After changing into a smart blouse and slacks, I gave my hair a final fluff in the hall mirror right as the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, sent up a quick prayer for patience, and went to greet my uncle. To my surprise, however, Aunt Clara's perfectly made-up face peered nervously at me instead when I opened the door. "Oh, good, you're home," she exhaled, clearly relieved. She smoothed her hands down her simple black sheath. "I was hoping we could talk privately before dinner." I stared wordlessly as a contrite Clara glanced at her heels. "May I come in?"
Helen reclined in the hallway, her eyes aglow as they fixated on the concert tickets clutched tightly in her grasp. Just as Christina emerged from the office, Helen burst out, "Christina, guess what? We're finally going to see them perform live." Christina paused at the entrance, her face shaded with concern. "Helen, I have some bad news. I can't go," Christina confessed, dodging Helen's questioning gaze. "I have something important to do." A mischievous suspicion flickered in Helen. "Oh, is it a mysterious date you haven't mentioned?" Christina chuckled softly. "No, it's not a date," she said, growing more serious. Helen persisted. "So, what's the reason?" "We've been looking forward to this." Christina shifted uncomfortably. "Please, let's just leave it at that." However, Helen's curiosity was insatiable. When Christina stepped away to get some water, Helen noticed a medical prescription on the coffee table. Unable to resist, she glanced over the paper. Mrs. Emily Foster, she whispered. Emily was Christina's ex-husband's mother. Upon Christina's return, Helen questioned her. Why are you still helping your ex-husband's mother, Christina? You've been divorced for a long time. Why keep her in your life? Christina remained silent for a moment. With a gentle smile, she replied, Emily's always been good to me. Right now, she needs someone, and that someone is me. Helen sighed. I just think you deserve better. You're so caring, and you're still alone. You deserve happiness. Christina softly replied. Caring for Emily brings me a different kind of happiness, Helen. Helen and Christina's friendship seemed genuine on the surface, but it concealed a shadow of true companionship. Hidden beneath their interactions was a bond built on manipulation and selfish intentions. Christina, ever trusting, often overlooked Helen's actions, hoping for the best. However, deep inside, she sensed the uneven nature of their relationship. Whenever they ventured out together, Helen ensured she stood out. From her carefully selected outfits to her attention-grabbing comments and preferred places. It all seemed designed to outshine Christina and keep her in the background. The concert ticket incident was a prime example. Helen bragged about securing tickets to the hottest concert in town without considering Christina's musical preferences. Moreover, during social outings, Helen would make unsolicited comments about Christina's single status, introducing her to any single man present with a voice dripping with pity. As if Christina was a project needing intervention, Christina could see through it. Helen's attempts to play matchmaker were not out of concern for her, but rather to spotlight herself and lure more attention. Christina often felt like a mere accessory in Helen's social game. Christina, a gentle soul, found it hard to decline any invitation, even if it wasn't to her liking. She usually accompanied her friends on their escapades, not wanting to upset anyone. However, today was different. There was another commitment she couldn't ignore. As they approached the bridge, the point where their paths would diverge, Christina could sense Helen's concern. Gathering her thoughts, Christina paused and said, Helen, I truly appreciate your concern for me. I believe that someday I'll find the right person. Please go on and enjoy yourself. I need to head in a different direction today. Christina inhaled deeply, the crisp cold air filling her lungs. Her thoughts quickly turned to Emily, her mother-in-law. On a normal day, Emily would have started the furnace by now. If she was having one of her painful episodes of migraines and high blood pressure, she'd be confined to her bed. This meant the house would be even colder, especially with the sharp winter chill outside. With a growing sense of urgency, Christina quickened her pace towards the bus stop. Their home was humble, a small house they acquired after her ex-husband lost their previous apartment due to his careless decisions. Glancing at her watch, she calculated that she had about 20 minutes before the bus would arrive. With the week's earnings clasped in her hand, she decided to drop by the pharmacy for some much-needed medication. Christina, dear, how are things with you and Emily? Margaret, the kind-hearted pharmacist who had been Emily's neighbor for years, greeted her warmly. Hi, Margaret. Everything's much the same, no big changes, Christina replied with a small smile. Dear Christina, Emily is truly fortunate to have you. Despite all that's happened, you've stayed by her side. Margaret remarked with a hint of admiration in her eyes. Christina responded softly, Emily is like family to me. Margaret shook her hand with a mixture of disbelief and pity. I'll never understand how a woman as good-hearted as Emily could have raised such a son. Collecting the medications and expressing her gratitude, Christina left the pharmacy, her heart heavy with the weight of her thoughts. She had always been a firm believer in serendipity. The day she bumped into Stephen at a local coffee shop, their eyes locked, and it felt as though the universe had conspired for that very moment. The connection was palpable. It wasn't long before they began dating, and as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Christina found herself falling deeply in love with him. 6 whirlwind months later, as they watched the sunset from their favorite spot at the beach, Stephen, with a nervous smile and eyes filled with hope, proposed marriage. Christina, her heart racing, agreed instantly. However, she couldn't help but point out that she hadn't even met his parents yet. Understanding her concerns, Stephen took her to his mother's house the following weekend. Emily, Stephen's mother, greeted them with a warm smile and open arms. It was a surprise to Christina how quickly she bonded with her. They would chat for hours, share stories, and by the end of the day, it felt as though they had known each other for years. Emily held a special fondness for Christina, evident in the approving gaze she cast upon her, her eyes sparkling with warmth. A few weeks later, Christina received an unexpected call from Emily. The tone in Emily's voice was both eager and nervous as she invited Christina to visit her. Sensing something amiss when she arrived, Christina sat down over a pot of tea. Emily took a deep breath and shared a shocking revelation. Stephen had been married twice before. Christina listened intently, her mind swirling with a whirlwind of emotions. What stood out, however, was a concern in Emily's voice. "He's my son, and I love him," Emily began, "but I don't want to see your heart get broken." Christina was surprised and puzzled. It wasn't every day that a mother revealed such a personal detail about her son. Still, she thanked Emily for her candor, although taken aback. Their conversation concluded with an embrace, but as Christina stepped out, her mind was clouded with mixed emotions. In the subsequent days, introspection filled Christina's thoughts. She decided against confronting Stephen, holding on to the belief that everyone deserved redemption and past actions should remain in the past. After all, Stephen's daily gestures painted a picture of a man who was devoted, considerate, and genuinely loved her. Time flew, and soon they were exchanging vows with loved ones around them, including a teary-eyed Emily, as they embarked on their marital journey. Christina occasionally reflected on her heart-to-heart with Emily. It served as a reminder of the value of trust, open dialogue, and the realization that everyone carries a past. Christina often thought back to that pivotal moment. Their quaint home stood as a reminder of what once was. Stephen, with his lofty ambitions, had convinced her to sell their apartment and invest the money in a seemingly promising business idea. Worse yet, he had persuaded his unsuspecting mother, Emily, to do the same. As the days unfolded, Stephen came clean about the grim reality. Not only had he lost every penny from their apartment sales, but he had also dug them deep into debt. Both Emily and Christina felt the weight of the betrayal, overwhelmed not just with shattered trust, but also relentless and intimidating phone calls from debtors. In her heart, Christina wanted to believe they were just facing the growing pains any young family might experience. She clung to the hope that they'd find a way out, and things would eventually get better. Yet, a more ominous cloud loomed, adding another layer of worry to an already strained household. Within the first year of their marriage, the pressure of not conceiving started to create cracks in their bond. Christina and Stephen had envisioned a life where they'd raise children together. Christina tried to stay positive and understanding, but Stephen's patience wore thin. His reluctance to consult a doctor was driven by a mix of fear and old-fashioned notions equating manhood with the ability to father children. One chilly evening, following yet another quiet meal, Stephen's bottled-up emotions erupted. "Perhaps you're the reason we can't start a family," he spat out. Christina was stunned and hurt by the baseless allegation, especially since they hadn't even taken a step towards seeking medical advice. The once harmonious atmosphere of their home was now punctuated by regular disputes. The warmth and intimacy that once characterized their relationship had evaporated, replaced by a cold detachment. The final straw came when Stephen, in a desperate move, revealed he was seeing another woman, hoping she would provide him with the family he yearned for. Christina's world fell apart. The love and trust she had placed in Stephen felt like a distant memory. Raised with traditional values, she had always believed in the enduring bond of marriage and the promise of forever. Stephen wasn't just her husband. He was her first and only love. Emily was beside herself with anger when she learned the truth. "How can you walk away from someone so genuine?" she demanded of Stephen. Over the years, Emily had come to see Christina as the daughter she never had. Her son's actions felt like a betrayal not just to Christina, but to her as well. Yet Stephen, blinded by his desires, just turned his back and left. He eventually married his new flame, and as days flowed into weeks and weeks into months, his new wife never made an effort to visit or connect with Emily. This sense of being abandoned by her son and ignored by his new wife left Emily grappling with immense loneliness and sorrow. Christina could see the pain and nostalgia in Emily's eyes. After a pause, Emily gestured for Christina to sit beside her and began to share a tale from her past. Christina, when I was about your age, I was engaged to a kind man named Howard. I thought of him as the love of my life. I also had a close friend named Lucy, or so I believed. As the wedding preparations were in full swing, I learned that Howard had fallen for Lucy. To make matters worse, Lucy became pregnant with his child. The betrayal was overwhelming. The man I loved and my supposed best friend had turned my world upside down. Heartbroken, I watched as they moved away to start a new life together. However, a couple of years later, an unexpected call from Lucy left me in a state of distress. Lucy, who was Howard's ex-wife, confessed that Howard had left her. Struggling to find love again as a single mother, Lucy often turned to drink to drown her loneliness and regrets. While I pitied her situation, it was the thought of their young son that truly weighed on my heart. Lucy's health deteriorated rapidly, and realizing she had limited time, she asked me to care for her son Stephen. The bond I developed with him was instant, even though he served as a constant reminder of my past heartache. I couldn't abandon him, especially after Lucy's passing. Her dying wish was for me to always be there for Stephen, and I willingly accepted, having grown genuinely fond of the boy. Christina listened, tears welling in her eyes, realizing the depth of Emily's compassion and the intricate ties that bound their shared history. "Christina, why are you so kind?" Emily asked, taken aback. "Oh, Emily," Christina whispered, understanding the parallels in their stories. Both had experienced heartbreaking betrayals from those they believed loved them the most. It was as if history had repeated itself, and they were bound together by shared pain. Christina was heartbroken, seeing how Stephen's neglect affected Emily, making her fall ill frequently. Eventually, Emily had a stroke. Many friends suggested that Christina move Emily to a specialized care center, arguing that Emily's condition might be beyond her capabilities. And after all, Emily wasn't truly her family. However, Emily and Christina saw each other differently. Christina saw them as family, and she was determined to care for Emily. Christina held onto the belief that with enough love and care, Emily would regain her strength and walk again, despite the doctor's doubts. Emily's determination never wavered. Christina gently inquired, "Did you never think of searching for Howard?" Emily took a moment, then sighed. "I loved Howard deeply, but I never searched for him. I thought, why should I? He probably had a family of his own by then." As Christina stepped off the bus and started her walk home, the sight of smoke billowing from her chimney brought a momentary sense of relief. It meant Emily had managed to light the stove. However, that relief was short-lived. An ambulance stood outside their house, frosted over, indicating it had been there for some time. Panic rolled up inside Christina as she quickened her steps, her mind filled with anxious thoughts. Rushing inside with her heart in her throat, she learned that Emily had suffered another stroke. When Emily finally regained consciousness, she felt a dull ache on her left side. Trying to speak, her words didn't come out clearly. Christina, with deep blue eyes full of warmth, reassured her. "Don't worry, Emily. You had another stroke, but you were strong enough to call for help. I'm here with you." Despite advice from her colleagues and friends, Christina left her job. Many couldn't understand why she would choose to care for the mother of a man who had once hurt her deeply. But for Christina, it wasn't just about that. She often thought about how she would feel if she were in Emily's position, facing loneliness and health challenges. She knew that if their roles were reversed, she would hope for someone to stand by her side, just as she was doing for Emily now. Christina's empathy and understanding went beyond past grievances. She wanted to be there for Emily, no matter what others thought. Over time, Emily began to regain her strength, and Christina became her rock during those challenging weeks. She cheered Emily on during her speech therapy sessions, held her hand as she took her first shaky steps, and laughed joyfully as they twirled around the living room in a makeshift dance. Upon returning to her job, Christina discovered a new management team in place, with Eddie as the new owner of the company. Eddie admired Christina's dedication to an elderly lady, not realizing the depth of their connection. Christina's commitment inspired him, and he found her intriguing. Helen, in contrast, was the buzzing bee of the office, known for her sociable tendencies and vibrant nature. One busy day, a critical project landed on their desk, and Eddie, as a team leader, delegated tasks. He handed the most demanding parts to Christina, trusting her proven track record. While Helen received a smaller yet important portion, Christina steadily worked through her tasks, occasionally checked in by Eddie, always met with a nod of assurance. In contrast, Helen found herself struggling, and her frequent coffee breaks and chats began to hamper her pace. As the deadline loomed closer, the office atmosphere grew tense. Eddie found a distraught Helen in the kitchen, and she admitted, "I've fallen behind." Eddie, concerned, approached her, asking, "Everything all right, Helen?" "I believe I could handle it," Eddie assured her, attempting to comfort Helen. "Don't worry, we'll work something out." At that moment, Christina entered the kitchen for a quick coffee refill. Observing Helen's distress, she offered, "I can chip in after I'm done with my part." This surprised both Helen and Eddie. When Christina handed in her portion of the project, Eddie was left amazed. Not only had she meticulously completed her assigned tasks, but she had also gone the extra mile, adding thoughtful recommendations that no one had even considered. On a particularly stressful day, Christina found a surprise at her desk, a vibrant bouquet of flowers. She paused, half expecting someone to realize they had mistakenly placed the flowers on her desk. Although the colorful blooms brightened her space, Christina couldn't help but wonder who had thought of her in such a kind way. Helen, always in the loop with office gossip, found herself taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. While she usually enjoyed being the go-to for office news, it was strange to see someone as reserved as Christina become the talk of the town. Christina, in the midst of solving the bouquet puzzle, discovered a dainty card nestled amidst the petals. It carried a sweet message in neat handwriting. "For the light you bring, even when you're not aware." However, there was no name or hint of the sender. Seen from the procurement department couldn't help but drop by, grinning cheekily. "Looks like someone's smitten with you," he remarked, giving her a playful wink. Flustered, Christina replied, "I really can't figure out who sent them." Throughout the morning, Christina's desk became a hot topic. Speculations ran wild, jokes were cracked, and everyone seemed to have a theory about the mystery sender. Helen, trying to reclaim her role as the office storyteller, teased, "I bet it's from that handsome new guy in finance," gesturing towards a young man in a wheelchair. Soon, others joined in with their own humorous takes on Christina's secret admirer. By noon, the attention became too much for Christina. Though she loved the flowers, the constant buzz around them turned her quiet day topsy-turvy. Needing a breather, she decided to slip away for a quiet lunch outside. A few days later, Christina was engrossed in her work when a courier suddenly appeared at her desk, holding an extravagant basket of flowers. Christina, surprised, nodded as the courier handed her a slip to sign. Helen couldn't resist approaching to inspect the bouquet, a glint of envy in her eyes. Another surprise awaited Christina. Helen, always quick with remarks, asked, "What's the story this time?" Despite being younger and, in her own opinion, more attractive, Helen couldn't fathom why Christina was receiving such attention. Christina, slightly embarrassed, responded, "I honestly don't know. It could be a mix-up." Helen, not one to back down, insinuated, "I've never heard about any romantic interests in your life. Did you order these for yourself, maybe to pretend someone's interested?" Choosing not to engage with Helen's comments, Christina returned to her work, leaving the flowers as an unsolved mystery. Every day, like clockwork, a fresh bouquet appeared at Christina's desk. The office buzzed with whispers and chuckles, and Helen's attempts to tease Christina continued. Despite the office gossip, Christina remained silent about the mystery sender. The relentless flower deliveries were starting to affect her concentration at work, not because of the flowers themselves, but due to the incessant chatter around them. Christina needed to discover who was behind this and why, as the mystery had become an unwelcome distraction. Christina was about to head out for lunch when a man held the main door open for her. Surprised, she stopped, realizing he was wearing a chauffeur's cap and uniform. Before she could say anything, he escorted her to a sleek sit-in parked in front of the office building and opened the passenger door for her. Feeling like she was in a daze, Christina wondered if this was even real. She pinched herself to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Finally, she spoke up, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. "Excuse me, sir, but what's going on? What does all this mean? Who's behind all this?" Her voice was tinged with bewilderment. The driver looked puzzled at first, but then broke into a warm smile. "You'll find out soon enough, madame. Please have a seat in the car." The whole situation felt like something out of a movie, and Christina was both anxious and excited to see what would happen next. The car smoothly made its way to one of the city's most elegant restaurants. The grand entrance was lit with soft lights, and as Christina stepped inside, the gentle hum of conversation greeted her. A smiling waiter instantly recognized her and motioned her to follow him as they weaved through tables. Christina spotted someone seated at a secluded spot in the back. His back was turned to her, making it impossible to recognize him immediately. With every step, her heartbeat quickened. Who could it be? Why were they meeting in such a secretive manner? Finally, she stood in front of the table, and before she could ask anything, the man turned around and greeted her. "Hello, Christina. Please join me." To her astonishment, it was Eddie, the new owner of the company. The soft glow of the table's candlelight highlighted his features, and he wore a gentle smile. Christina was filled with a mix of surprise, curiosity, and a dash of nervousness. When Eddie first learned of Christina's heartwarming actions towards her former mother-in-law, he found it hard to believe such acts of kindness were rare. Genuinely astonished, he decided to verify the story for himself by visiting Emily while Christina was away at work. Introducing himself as a colleague from her office, checking in to see if Christina's extended leave was for a genuine reason, Eddie realized that all he'd heard about Christina's dedication and kindness was true. Beyond his professional curiosity, Eddie had a personal reason for wanting to learn more about Christina. For years, he had remained single, and his mother often urged him to find someone special and settle down. Eddie would lament how many people seemed to prioritize material wealth over genuine feelings and connections. For him, it wasn't about physical appearance. He was drawn to a person's inner character and values. Knowing Christina's selfless actions towards Emily deepened his intrigue and respect for her. During their lunch, Christina chuckled, and Eddie looked slightly embarrassed. "I apologize if it was overwhelming. I just thought you deserved something beautiful every day." He hesitated before adding, "Honestly, I didn't know how to approach you directly. I've never really tried to win someone over before, so I guess I went a bit overboard with the flowers as a way to show my interest," Eddie admitted. Christina shook her head in amusement. "Well, thanks to your little gesture, there's a running joke in the office that I've been sending them to myself." Eddie laughed heartily, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I guess we've given them quite the story, haven't we?" During their lunch, Christina felt the need to be open about her past. Taking a deep breath, she said, "Before things progress further, there's something I need to share with you. I was married once before." Eddie looked at her with understanding eyes and a gentle smile. "I already know about it," he replied softly. "Your past is a part of you, but it doesn't define the present. We all have stories." This made her feel even more at ease, realizing that Eddie valued who she was now rather than dwelling on what once was. Eddie and Christina began spending more time together. It wasn't formal dating, but more of a slow exploration. Having navigated the rocky terrain of a failed marriage before, Christina was wary of diving in too quickly. They decided to keep their budding relationship under wraps for the time being. With Emily recovering well, Christina felt like she was living in a dream. Everything seemed to be falling into place. However, when Eddie mentioned promoting her, she immediately declined. She didn't want to be under the office microscope or the subject of speculation. "If you need assistance, I'm here to help, but please, let's keep it discreet," she told him. This response only deepened Eddie's admiration for her. He felt he had indeed found someone genuine to stand by his side. However, secrets have a way of unraveling. One day, a colleague spotted Eddie and Christina in an intimate moment outside of work. The rumor mill went into overdrive, and whispers of their relationship began circulating the office. When Helen caught wind of the gossip, she was livid. She cornered Christina, bombarding her with a barrage of questions. Christina, maintaining her composure, said nothing. This silence confirmed Helen's suspicions. Envy consumed her, and she hatched a plan to tarnish Christina's image. She started spreading fabricated tales of Christina's past, alleging that Christina's ex-husband had left her due to financial recklessness on her part. Helen's jealousy was no secret. She had tried multiple times to ensnare Eddie with her charms, but he remained impervious. Eddie would laugh off Helen's flirty remarks and dinner invites, always citing his busy schedule as a reason. One day, Helen stormed into Eddie's office, her face flushed with anger. "I can't believe you're seriously considering a relationship with Christina. Do you even know her past?" She stormed out, leaving Eddie calm. Armed with the truth that he had painstakingly gathered, he confronted Helen. "I'm aware that Christina was married," he replied, standing up and walking toward the window. "I also know why her husband left her. He left her for another woman." Eddie paused, his eyes locking onto Helen's as he turned back around. "And that woman, Helen, was you." Helen was dumbfounded, her face a mix of shock and disbelief. She never thought her secret would be uncovered, but she had underestimated Eddie. Eddie was no novice when it came to due diligence. After speaking with Emily, he tracked down Christina's ex-husband, Stephen, and offered him a sum of money for the truth. The promise of quick cash loosened Stephen's lips, revealing the real story. The room went silent, the air heavy with the weight of the revealed secret. Helen's schemes had caught up to her, unraveling in the moment of stark revelation. Helen, once the chatterbox of the office, had retreated into the shadows. Christina always wanted to think the best of people, was concerned for her once close friend when Helen suddenly stopped coming to work. Christina felt a pang of sadness. But when she asked Eddie about Helen's abrupt departure, he shared that she had decided to move and begin anew. Amidst all of this, Christina had a significant event coming up, meeting Eddie's mother, Grace. It was an important milestone for any couple. Since Christina's parents were no longer around, she brought Emily, her former mother-in-law, with her to dinner. Grace was elegant, her years of meticulous work as an accountant giving her a sharp, attentive gaze. From the moment Christina introduced Emily, the two clicked. Both had experienced so much in life, and as the evening progressed, they exchanged stories, laughed together, and found comfort in each other's company. It was clear to Eddie and Christina that a beautiful friendship was blossoming between Emily and Grace. As Christina became more involved in Eddie's business ventures, their professional collaboration turned heads in the office. Whispers turned into open discussions, and before long, everyone knew about their romance. The two had become the most talked about couple at the company, but this time for all the right reasons. At the office parking lot, a familiar car caught Christina's eye. The office was almost deserted, with everyone heading off to celebrate New Year's Eve with their families. As Christina was about to head home after wrapping up her final report, Eddie stepped out from behind the parked car, holding a huge bouquet of pristine white roses. "Come on, it's New Year's Eve. Work can wait," Eddie playfully chastised her, laughing. Christina replied, "I'm sorry, love. Just had that one last report to wrap up. That night, in the warmth of Eddie's home, they enjoyed an intimate dinner. During a quiet moment, Emily arose from her seat, her eyes shimmering with tears. She gazed deeply at Christina, emotion evident in her voice. I might have lost Stephen, but in his place, I gained a precious daughter and a wonderful son. Fast forward 2 months, Eddie and Christina were happily married. In another 4 months, Christina decided to resign from her job. At Eddie's gentle insistence, the couple had even more joyous news. They were expecting a baby. Christina's story was a testament to the power of resilience and kindness. Despite life's challenges, she held onto the values her parents had taught her, to always lend a helping hand and to be kind. As they said, kindness would always come back to you, sometimes even tenfold. I stood before Julia, announcing my decision with a stern resolve. I'm moving in with my parents. If you're against it, then let's get a divorce, I declared, my voice devoid of any emotion. Julia looked at me in disbelief, her mind racing to comprehend the audacity of my words. The impact was like a slap across her face. What are you talking about, Ellen? She stammered, her voice reflecting a mix of shock and confusion. It's simple, I continued, my eyes cold and calculating. We'll use your $2 million inheritance to build a house there. That's the plan. A knot tightened in Julia's stomach. The inheritance, her mother's final gift, was now a tool in my scheme. You can't be serious, she whispered. Oh, I'm dead serious, Julia. It's time to make some changes, I replied sharply. Memories of our life together flashed through her mind. The laughter, love, the birth of our children. How did we end up here? At 38, a mother of two, she had thought she was living a normal life with a man she once loved. But now I stood before her, a stranger. You have no right to decide how my inheritance is used, she protested, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and disbelief. As your husband, I think I do. It's either my way or the highway, Julia. Decide, I declared, my tone leaving no room for negotiation. She stared at me, trying to find a trace of the man she married, but all she saw was a greedy stranger eyeing her inheritance like a vulture. Realization hit her standing in the shadow of the man she no longer recognized. Her marriage was a lie. Fine, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. If that's how you want it, we're done. But don't expect to touch a dime of my money. My smirk vanished, replaced by shock. I hadn't expected this. I turned on my heel and left, slamming the door behind me. Alone, Julia stood there, her heart pounding. The battle lines were drawn. It was no longer just about money. It was about her dignity, her freedom. The next morning, the house felt eerily silent as Julia prepared breakfast. The previous night's confrontation replayed in her mind, fueling her anger. How could I be so callous? The money was a part of her mother's legacy, not some windfall for me to squander. Our children, Emma and Ryan, noticed the tension but remained quiet. They were too young to understand the complexity of adult conflicts, yet they sensed something was amiss. Julia forced a smile for their sake. After dropping them off at school, she drove to her mother's empty house, echoing with memories. Sitting in the living room, she recalled the times my parents had made insensitive remarks about their lifestyle, choices, and even their children. They had always favored traditional gender roles, and unfortunately, I seemed to have inherited their archaic views. I can't comprehend why you're still working. Alan's mother once sneered, her disdain evident. A woman's place is at home with her children. Alan, my husband, never stood up for me. He consistently brushed off his parents' derogatory comments, urging me to ignore them. However, their words were like needles, steadily pricking away at my self-esteem. Now, with my mother gone and my marriage falling apart, I felt a surge of resentment towards Alan. He had never truly been my partner, leaving me to fend for myself against his parents' criticisms and never once taking my side. I vividly remembered when I was pregnant with Emma, and Alan's parents openly expressed their hope for a grandson. When Emma was born, their disappointment was palpable. "Next time, make sure it's a boy," they had said, barely concealing their dissatisfaction. Witnessing my daughter subjected to such blatant favoritism was painful. Now, Alan wanted to use my inheritance to move closer to them, to immerse ourselves in their toxic environment. The thought made my blood boil. I couldn't and wouldn't let that happen. As I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of my mother's life, a plan began to form in my mind. I refused to be bullied into submission. I would fight back not just for myself, but for my children too. Alan had revealed his true colors, and it was time for him to face the consequences. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready for war. Over the next few days, I gathered documents and prepared for the legal battle ahead. My lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Miss Henderson, assured me that we had a strong case. "Don't worry, Julia. We'll make sure that inheritance stays where it rightfully belongs," she said with a confident smile. One evening, as I sorted through my mother's belongings, I stumbled upon an old, dusty envelope tucked away in a drawer. Inside, I found a set of documents, stock certificates, and property deeds. My hands trembled as I realized the extent of my mother's secret savings, including the current value of the stocks and the property. It amounted to a staggering $2 million. I couldn't believe it. My mother, who had lived so modestly, had been sitting on a small fortune. She had always been prudent with money, but I never imagined she had accumulated so much. A note accompanied the documents, written in her neat handwriting. "Julia, I saved this for a rainy day. I hope it gives you and the kids a better life. Use it wisely." Tears welled up in my eyes. My mother's foresight and love felt like a warm embrace even from beyond the grave. The next day, I decided to confront Alan. He needed to know that his plan to squander my inheritance was doomed to fail. I found him in the living room, lazily flipping through a magazine. "Alan, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady. He looked up, a hint of annoyance in his eyes. "What is it now, Julia?" "I discovered something of my mother's," I began, holding up the envelope. "Turns out, she left me stocks and properties worth $2 million. Alan's eyes widened, a mix of shock and greed flashing across his face. "$2 million? That's great news," he exclaimed, his reaction disgusting me. "Don't get any ideas, Alan. This money is mine and the kids. You won't see a cent of it." His expression turned dark. "You can't keep it all to yourself, Julia. We're married." "What's yours is mine," he retorted. I felt a surge of anger. "You've shown your true colors, Alan. You don't care about me or the kids. All you see is dollar signs." Alan stood up, his face red with anger. "You're being selfish, Julia. I'm thinking about our future, about our family." "What family, Alan? The one you're ready to abandon for your own selfish needs?" I shot back. He took a step towards me, fists clenched. "You'll regret this, Julia. I'll make sure of it." I stood my ground, unwavering. "Bring it on, Alan. I'm not afraid of you anymore." He stormed out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I knew this was just the beginning of a long and bitter battle, but I was ready for my children, for my mother's legacy, and for myself. The following week was a whirlwind of legal consultations and tense silences at home. Alan's attitude had shifted from shock to a cold, calculated aggression. He was like a caged animal, desperate and dangerous. One evening, as the kids were asleep, Alan cornered me in the kitchen. His eyes were wild, his posture aggressive. "You think you're clever, Julia. Hiding that money from me," he accused. I leaned against the counter, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "It's not about being clever, Alan. It's about what's right. That money is for me and the kids, not for your deluded fantasies." He slammed his fist on the countertop, making me jump. "I am your husband. I have rights to that money. You're just a—" His words were like venom, but I cut him off. "A what, Alan?" "A woman who won't bow down to your greed and bullying." His face contorted in anger. "You'll regret this, Julia. I'll make sure you don't get a dime of that money." I could feel the danger in his words, but I refused to show fear. Is that a threat, Alan? He leaned in, his breath foul. It's a promise. I pushed past him, my body shaking with adrenaline. We'll see about that. The court will decide. As I walked away, his voice followed me, filled with malice. You're going to be left with nothing, Julia. Nothing. The next day, I received a call from my lawyer. Julia, Alan has filed for divorce. He's claiming half of your inheritance. I took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. Let him try. I'll fight him every step of the way. Miss Henderson's voice was firm. We have a strong case, Julia. Don't worry. We'll make sure justice is served. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about my children sleeping peacefully in their rooms. I dedicated myself to this battle for my children, for their future. Alan had transformed into a stranger, a man driven by greed and malice. Yet I was no longer the woman he believed he could control and intimidate. As I closed my eyes, I pictured the courtroom, the judge, and the final verdict. I envisioned myself standing tall, fighting vigorously, not just for the money, but for my dignity, my children's future, and the quiet strength my mother had always exemplified. This was my battle, and I was prepared for it. The ensuing legal battle was arduous. Alan's strategy was transparent, to portray me as an uncooperative wife, hoarding the family's resources. However, his arguments were feeble, more rooted in desperation than in law. One afternoon, we faced each other in mediation, a final attempt to settle before the court hearing. Alan sat across from me, his lawyer by his side, his gaze cold, and his demeanor smug. Let's be reasonable, Julia, his lawyer began. Alan is entitled to a portion of this inheritance. It's only fair. I glanced at Miss Henderson, my resolve unyielding. Fair. Alan has made no contribution to this inheritance. It is solely from my late mother, intended for me and my children. Alan leaned forward, his voice scornful. Come on, Julia. You're just being spiteful. Don't you think the kids would want their father to have a share? I felt a surge of anger. This isn't about spite, Alan. It's about justice. You've never cared about what the kids want. This is about your greed. His lawyer tried to interject, but Alan signaled him to stop. You think you can just take everything, don't you, Julia? Play the grieving daughter and the victimized wife. I met his gaze squarely. This isn't a game, Alan. You're the one trying to take what isn't yours. The mediator, a middle-aged woman with a stern face, interjected. Let's try to remain civil. This is about finding a resolution. Alan cut her off, his voice rising. A resolution? She's the one being unreasonable. I could feel the tension in the room, thick and suffocating. I spoke calmly yet firmly. I am being perfectly reasonable. I'm protecting what my mother left for her grandchildren. Alan's claims are baseless. The mediator called for a break, sensing the futility of the discussion. As we stood up, Alan leaned in close, his breath hot on my ear. You'll pay for this, Julia. I'll make sure of it. I walked out of the room, my heart racing but my spirit unbroken. Alan's threats were hollow, his case weak. I knew the law was on my side, and I was determined to see this through to the end. In the following weeks, I immersed myself in legal documents, met with Miss Henderson, and prepared for the court hearing. The kids stayed with my sister, shielded from the worst of the storm. I missed them terribly, but I knew this fight was for their future as much as it was for mine. The day of the hearing arrived. Standing in the courtroom, I braced myself to confront Alan and whatever deceptive narrative he planned to weave. This was the moment of truth, and I was prepared to fight with every ounce of strength within me. The courtroom felt like a battleground where words were the weapons, and Alan's lawyer crafted a tale of a wronged husband, deprived of his rightful share. Yet, under Miss Henderson's skilled questioning, his arguments crumbled like a fragile house of cards. During a recess, Alan cornered me in the hallway, his face twisted in fury. You're ruining everything, Julia? You think you're going to walk away with all that money? I stood my ground despite the fear gnawing at me. It's not your money, Alan. It never was. He stepped closer, his voice a venomous whisper. I'll drag this out as long as it takes. I'll bleed you dry in legal fees. Meeting his gaze, my voice remained unwavering. Do what you must. I won't let you bully me into submission. As we returned to the courtroom, a strange sense of empowerment washed over me. Alan's threats were hollow, his bravado a mask for desperation. The final verdict was a vindication. The judge ruled in my favor, acknowledging the inheritance as my sole property. Alan's face, as the judgment was delivered, reflected defeat. However, the victory was bittersweet. I had won the legal battle, but at the cost of my marriage, the family I had known shattered. In the weeks that followed, Alan's life unraveled. His reputation, built on lies and intimidation, crumbled. The community saw him for the greedy man who had attempted to take advantage of his wife's inheritance. Rumors reached me about his struggles: lost job, lost friends, lost standing in the community. It was a steep fall from grace, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of poetic justice. One evening, a mutual acquaintance called. "Julia, have you heard about Alan?" I hesitated. "No, what about him?" "He's moving out of town, lost his job, his house. He's pretty much broke." I felt a pang of not quite satisfaction, but something close. Alan had reaped what he had sown. He had tried to destroy me, but in the end, he had destroyed himself. I hung up the phone and looked at the picture of my children on the mantel. This fight had been for them, for their future and security. As I tucked them into bed that night, I felt a sense of peace. The battle was over, and we had emerged stronger. We were free from Alan's shadow, ready to start a new chapter. Our lives would be different, but we would be okay. We were together, and that was all that mattered. In the months following the court ruling, life settled into a new rhythm. The victory in court gave me a sense of closure, but marked the beginning of a new journey, one of healing and rebuilding. I decided to sell the house, the scene of so many bitter memories. Each item I packed was a step away from my past with Alan. I was determined to create a better future for Emma and Ryan. While going through some old boxes in the attic one day, I found a picture of Alan and me in happier times. For a moment, I allowed myself to grieve for the life I thought I had, the love I thought was real. But as I looked at his smiling face in the photo, I realized that the man I had married no longer existed. He had shown his true colors, and they were dark and ugly. I tossed the photo into the trash bin, a symbolic gesture of letting go. Moving to a new town brought a fresh start. I found a cozy home in a friendly neighborhood, and the kids enrolled in a new school, soon making friends. I focused more on my writing, finding solace in the worlds I created with my words. One evening, as I was tucking Emma into bed, she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. "Mom, do you miss Dad?" The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes I miss who I thought your dad was, but we're better off now. We're a strong team, just the three of us." She nodded, a wise look in her young eyes. "I like it here, Mom. I like our new home." Her words filled me with warmth. We had indeed come a long way. As I lay in bed that night, I reflected on Alan's downfall. His greed and malice had backfired, leaving him with nothing. While I harbored no joy in his misfortunes, there was a sense of justice in how things had turned out. The kids and I had a long road ahead, but we were on the path to healing. The inheritance, now securely invested, would provide for their education and our future. I closed my eyes, thinking of my mother. Her strength and foresight had saved us. In her wisdom, she had given me the means to protect myself and my children. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace. The storm had passed, and in its wake, it had left clarity and hope. We had weathered the worst, and now a new day was dawning. "Mom, I can't continue living like this. Ethan and his mom barely let me eat." A sudden SOS call interrupted my distress. "Ilana, come back home," I instinctively shouted. Ilana had become worryingly thin. "I won't forgive Ethan and his mother," I resolved with determination. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jonna, a 50-year-old housewife. My husband James is 52 and works for a company. Our daughter is turning 26, having graduated from college and landed a job at a major corporation. She started living alone, and James and I were enjoying our life as a couple. Despite her success, Ilana was shy around men and hesitant in relationships. When she finally got a boyfriend, James and I were overjoyed. James kept urging her to bring him over, asking, "What's he like? Bring him home sometime." I cautioned James, "Honey, don't push her. She'll introduce him when she's ready. Let's wait patiently." Alana soon smiled and said she'd bring Ethan over. "Dad, you kept insisting, so I complained to Ethan. He agreed to come over to meet you, but don't say anything weird to him, okay?" James was visibly delighted when Ethan came to greet us. James and I were nervous, but Ethan's friendly conversation soon eased our tension. Ethan introduced himself, saying, "Hello, I'm Ethan Smith, and I'm seriously dating Alana with the intention of marrying her." Alana blushed and said, "Marrying Ethan? You're embarrassing me. You said it was just a casual greeting." James happily told Alana, "No, it's great that he's thinking about the future. Ethan, I entrust Alana to you." Their relationship progressed smoothly with our blessing, and Ethan proposed formally 5 months later. Seeing a blushing but happy Alana made both James and me very happy. I heard Ethan worked for a major bank system company, and James and I discussed how their future seemed secure. As wedding preparations began, Alana frequently sought advice. One day, she asked, "Hey, Mom, how much is the market price for a wedding ring?" "Ethan is planning to buy one for about $10,000. Surprised, I replied, "For wedding rings, maybe about $2,500 each for the couple. I've heard engagement rings are around $3,500. Ilana seemed a bit uneasy. I felt the same way after asking around and reading magazines. Ethan's sense of money was odd. However, when Ilana said, "Ethan insists it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing and wants me to have something nice," I conveniently interpreted it as Ethan wanting to give her a special gift. After some time, the two moved out of their bachelor's residence and into a condominium in New York. The area was very expensive but convenient for commuting. I expressed my concern to Ilana, saying, "Hey, Ilana, the area you and Ian live in must be pretty expensive to rent, right? Are you going to be able to afford the monthly payments?" She reassured me, "Don't worry, Mom. Ian's working hard and earns a decent salary too. His job requires living near the bank. Ethan is a systems engineer at a bank-rated systems company. If there is a problem, Ethan needs to rush to the site even in the middle of the night. That's why the location had to be close to the bank, within a short taxi ride." Apparently, Alana explained, "Ethan's company gives a substantial housing allowance, so we're fine. Don't worry, Mom." Not fully understanding the system company's situation, I just accepted it as how things were. Months passed, and I invited Ilana for lunch before her marriage. Ilana and I often went for lunch together. However, after her marriage, when I invited her to join me, she often declined, citing being busy with work or having made other plans. James suggested that maybe she's just busy with her married life, but it didn't seem like Ilana was avoiding me. Over the phone, Ilana said, "Next Saturday." "Oh, that's when Ethan is on a business trip." "Sure, Mom, I can make it. I'll find a place for us." I was a bit thrilled to have lunch with my daughter after half a year. When I finally saw Ilana, she looked a bit pale. Concerned, I said, "Ilana, what's wrong? If you're not feeling well, take it easy. Just stay home and rest, okay?" Ilana reassured me, "No, I'm fine. I've just been tired from MDI overtime lately. Plus, lunch with you might be just what I need to unwind." She managed a weak smile, and we enjoyed a good chat, just the two of us. About 2 hours in, Ilana's phone rang. She looked shocked when she saw the display. Ilana told me, "Mom, I have to go home already. Ethan's mother is calling." She explained that Ivy was at their place. Surprised, I said, "Sorry for keeping you during such a busy time." Ilana reassured me, "It's okay. You can hurry back." Apologizing, Alana quickly left. Another half a year went by, and during this time, something terrible happened to Alana. I learned about it from a phone call from her. It was a sad day, and James and I were enjoying our day off. While I was making her tea, suddenly my phone rang. The display showed Alana. I quickly answered, and Alana hesitantly started, Mom, it's me. I. She seemed unable to continue, and sensing something was wrong, I asked, "What's the matter? Did something happen?" Alana remained silent for a while. Patiently, I waited for her to start talking. Eventually, she said, "Mom, I can't live like this anymore. Ethan and his mom barely let me eat. I might not survive if this continues." Shocked, I asked, "Are you okay? Sounds like things are really bad. Why don't you come back home?" Alana seemed undecided. I firmly told her, "If you're feeling unwell, you can just sit around idly. Come back home. We'll talk it over when you get here." Alana responded, "Really? Can I come back? But I don't have any money. I can't leave." I thought this was strange. Alana was earning a decent salary, but there was no time for a long discussion. Her situation sounded serious. First, I needed to meet with Alana to see how she is doing. I instructed Alana, "Take only your valuables with you and leave the house. There's a convenience store near your apartment, right? I will drive there and pick you up. Wait for me there." Sobbing, Alana agreed. James and I hurried to the convenience store. When we arrived, Alana was crouched in the parking lot. She saw me and said, Mom, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this." She broke down and cried. I hugged Alana, and together with James, we helped her into the car. She was terribly thin and almost gray in complexion. I was astonished, wondering what could have happened to her. I held Alana until she stopped crying. James said to me, "She will not be able to come down here. Let's take her home soon and give her a good rest. We need to talk to Ethan." I agreed with James, stating, "Yes, right now letting Alana rest is our top priority." When we arrived home, Alana, possibly due to exhaustion, immediately fell asleep on the sofa. After she woke up, I served her some easy-to-eat food. She ate voraciously in front of us, indicating how hungry she must have been. It was shocking to hear her stories about not being allowed to eat and having no money. I asked Alana, "What do you mean you're not allowed to eat?" Alana explained, "My salary is lower than Ethan's, so Ethan and his mom Ivy keep telling me to save more." Gradually, my food portions were reduced. I asked, "Really? But you're making the food, right? Because you're a married couple, and you eat the same food, right?" Alana shook her head, saying, "No. For the past 6 months, Ivy has been cooking Ethan's meals. I'm not even allowed in the kitchen." James asked, "Ellen, Ivy is in your house. This is the first time I'm hearing about this. Does this mean Ivy is staying there all the time?" Alana explained that Ivy had moved in with them about 6 months ago, and they started living together gradually, right around the time Alana and I had lunch. Ivy had an argument with her husband and came to stay with Ian for just a week. But then Ethan got mad at his father and told Ivy she could stay indefinitely. I was shocked and glanced at James, who seemed to feel the same. Alana continued, "Since then, Ivy has been criticizing my budgeting, saying it's all wrong and that I can't manage money at all." After Ivy criticized the budget, she took control of the household finances. Moreover, Ethan did not oppose Ivy at all and instead joined her in blaming me. Now Ivy is controlling Ethan's and my entire salary. Alana said, "Ivy saw my pay slip and demanded I work more, including overtime. Ivy told me, 'Your salary is much lower than Ethan's. Leave the housework to me and work more.' How about doing more overtime?" Ian also told Alana, "Yes, that's right. I agree with more overtime. It's nice to have my mom doing the housework. You're lucky, Alana." Ivy scrutinized Alana's pay slips, always looking for unnecessary expenses, and eventually found something else to criticize: the cafeteria deductions. Alana's company has a cafeteria, and lunch costs are deducted from her salary. Ivy told Ilana, "You're spending too much on lunch. I'll make you a lunchbox from now on. Stop eating at the cafeteria." Ilana's attempts to argue were met with attacks from both Ivy and Ethan. Ilana confided, "Whenever I try to speak up, Ivy and Ethan gang up on me. It never ends up being a calm discussion." Ilana said something, but her words were suppressed by Ivy and Ethan. Now, Ethan and Ivy control all of Ilana's salary, leaving her with almost no money of her own. When Ilana wanted to go to the hair salon, Ivy called it extravagant and reluctantly gave her money. Ivy also complained about Ilana's makeup being too expensive, telling her to buy cheaper products. Ilana can't even buy new clothes, but Ivy never complains about Ethan's spending. Ethan seems to spend money lavishly. Ilana told me the other day, Ethan bought a branded watch. He told me that because of his job, he would be treated like an idiot if he didn't wear something decent. Ethan has a reckless way of spending his money. Ilana began to sob as she recalled these painful events. James and I listened in disbelief. Then, Ilana's phone rang. She flinched and turned pale. I instinctively answered the phone for her. It was Ivy. "So, isn't this Ilana's phone? Why is Johnny answering?" Ivy asked. I replied, "Hello, it's been a while. Ilana is not feeling well. I can talk to you on her behalf." Ivy said, "Is that so? Well, all right. Could you tell Ilana to come back home soon?" I replied, "Unfortunately, I can't do that. Aylin is unwell. She'll stay here until she recovers." Ivy retorted, "You're coddling her too much. As a mother, you should educate Ellen properly. She can't manage a budget or do household chores. It's always one problem after another." Struggling to find the right words, I remained silent. Then, Ivy changed the topic, asking, "So, Ilana will be commuting to work from your home?" I replied, "Yes, considering her health, we'll need to discuss this with her company. But for now, she'll be commuting from here." Ivy then said, "Please tell Ilana to return as soon as she's well." I responded, "Excuse me, Ivy, but I think it's necessary for us, including Ethan, to have a discussion about the future living arrangements." Ivy snorted and said, "Fine, we can talk any time," before hanging up. I couldn't understand why Ivy was so confident, but at least Ilana was safe for now. We needed to focus on her health and feelings and plan our next steps. That night, after Ilana went to sleep, James and I discussed the situation. The next day, Ilana was examined at a hospital. As expected, she was underweight and not sleeping well. After talking with her, we decided she should take a leave of absence from work. She enjoyed my cooking, saying it was delicious. I asked her, "What were you eating while living with Ian? What kind of meals did Ivy prepare for you?" Ilana said, "My mother-in-law only cooks for Ethan and herself. I always had bread ends from a local bakery. They sell bread very cheaply. That's what I used to eat." I was shocked. Ellen had been deprived of proper meals, while Ivy and Ethan ate normally, just bread ends. Since 3 months ago, Ivy had stopped her from eating at the company cafeteria. My lunchbox was just bread ends in a container. I was embarrassed, so I ate secretly in the break room when no one was around, Ilana said. Ivy would taunt her about not earning as much as Ethan, saying with her salary, bread ends were all she deserved. She had been living on just bread ends for 3 months. I was shocked, and James, who heard everything, couldn't hide his surprise. Tired from sharing, Ilana lay down to rest. James told me, "This is serious. We need to investigate further. If Ian or Ivy calls again, by some time, I'll gather more information." I told James, "Yes, I think this is going too far." Then James and I began looking into Ilan's circumstances. I started by calling her work colleague, who said, "Recently, Ilana has been doing a lot of overtime and looked pale. She often declined after-work drinks, saying she couldn't go because of her husband and mill." James also talked to Ilana's boss. Ilana's boss mentioned, "I've been concerned about Ilana lately because she's been doing too much overtime. She seemed desperate to work. Ilana's boss commented, Ilin is so conscientious. Maybe she's been pushing herself too hard. I hope she recovers soon and comes back to us. Thanks to her boss's initiative, Ileana was granted sickness allowance by her company. The allowance was 2/3 of her salary, but we were grateful to receive it. We decided to have the sickness allowance paid into a different account from her usual salary account. 2 weeks after Ileana returned home, Ethan called. He insisted Ileana should be well by now. When I looked at James, he answered the phone. James humbly requested Ethan, Ileana is not fully recovered yet. Please let her rest for another week. Ethan told James over the phone, I guess there's no choice. Just 1 more week, okay? And then hung up. I protested to James, saying she needs at least 3 more weeks to recover, and we don't know what they'll do to her if she goes back. James reassured me, don't worry, we won't stick to the 1-week timeline. They treated her terribly, and we have a plan. He then asked Ileana, what do you want to do? If you want to try again with Ethan, we won't stop you. But if you want to leave him, we'll support you. Ileana, suddenly resolute, said, I've been thinking, am I really as useless as Ivy and Ethan say? But this isn't right. They're just taking my money. I don't want this anymore. I want a divorce. James encouraged her, saying, that's right. You've chosen your path. We'll always be on your side. James shared the information he had gathered with us. We prepared for the possibility of Ethan coming over, ready to handle the situation. 1 week passed, and we didn't contact Ian. 9 days later, Ethan and Ivy came to visit. When the doorbell rang, I checked the intercom and informed Ileana and James. James suggested, let's talk to them directly and settle this. Ileana nodded in agreement. Opening the door, we found Ethan and Ivy glaring at us. Calming myself, I greeted them warmly. Hello, what brings you here so suddenly? Ethan demanded. Why hasn't Ileana returned home? It's been a week. You did tell her, right? Ivy also chimed in. That's right. You can't do your chores, you can't do your laundry, and you can't even keep your promise to come home. What a mess you are. Parents and children are helpless. Inviting them in, I said, let's not talk in the doorway. Please come inside. Reluctantly, they entered. Ileana told them firmly, I won't return to that house, Ethan. Please, let's divorce. I can't live with you anymore. Ethan threatened loudly. You think you can just decide that? But Ileana stood her ground, facing Ethan with resolve. Ivy then berated Ileana, saying, for 6 months, I did all the housework and supported Ethan while you neglected your duties. Ileana countered, it's not that I didn't do the chores. Whenever I did, you would criticize my methods and take over the tasks, didn't you? Ivy retorted, how dare you speak to me like that after making me work so hard? You should be ashamed. I was only trying to correct your mistakes, Ethan joined in. That's right, my mother helped because you couldn't handle the chores, allowing you to focus on work, he added. That's when James shouted at them, what nonsense. You took Ilin's salary and fed her only bread ends. Your actions are the worst kind of abuse. They were shocked by James' outburst. James added, Ethan, you have been fired from your company. I checked out your employment status. You don't have the power to continue paying the rent on that apartment anymore, do you? Ethan began to look uneasy. Ileana added, I didn't know until Dad told me. James continued, I hired a detective to find out Ian. You were fired 6 months ago for an affair with your boss's wife. Ileana accused Ethan, you pushed me to work because you lost your job and income. Ethan turned pale and hung his head. James then confronted Ivy. You have a shopping addiction, and that's right, you didn't leave your home due to a fight, but because you were divorced and had nowhere to go. Ivy lost her composure and turned pale. James concluded, Ethan is being sued for alimony, and Ivy is being chased by debt collectors. They were trying to pass their debts onto Ileana. Ileana, trembling with anger, placed a piece of paper on the desk. She said, once and for all, let's divorce. I filled out half of the divorce form. You complete it and submit it to the authorities. We'll communicate through lawyers from now on. Ethan, prostrating at Eliana's feet on the carpet, pleaded, "Please don't say we should divorce. It was just a moment of madness. I was wrong to hide it from you. You're all I have, Alana. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me." Ivy, also appealing to Ileana, cried, "I did all the housework and took care of everything, didn't I? I'm sorry, please come back. I'll keep doing the chores." Ileana, looking at Ethan and Ivy coldly, said, "I'm fed up. Who would want to start over with you two? You hid what you did and exploited my salary. I don't want to see your faces." Ethan and Ivy were unable to move from their spot, crying inconsolably. James sternly told them, "The conversation is over. It's time for you to leave. If you don't, we have our ways to deal with it." Reluctantly, Ethan and Ivy stood up and left our home defeated. Afterward, with a lawyer's help, Ileana and Ethan officially divorced. Of course, we filed for alimony from Ethan. In addition to hiding his affair, we also added the fact that Ethan did not provide adequate meals to Elena in the alimony claim. We had a doctor's diagnosis, which served as conclusive evidence against Ethan. Ethan had to move out of the apartment and live in a cheaper one with Ivy. Now he's working day and night to pay the alimony to Ileana, and Ivy, not working, has become the target of Ethan's anger, and they constantly fight. Our lawyer informed us about Ethan and Ivy's current situation. Ellen fully recovered and returned to work. Ileana seems to be enjoying her work more than ever. She apologized to me and James, saying, "I'm sorry for being a burden and coming back home. Thank you for all your help with the divorce. I'll be staying here for a while." I hugged her, saying, "Divorce doesn't matter. The fact that you're alive and well is all that matters to us." James added, "Don't overdo it. You're a hard worker, and sometimes you keep things to yourself too much." Ileana admitted, "I should have talked to you both sooner. I tried to handle too much on my own." Seeing Ileana's smile return was truly heartwarming, and James, who stood by us and fought against Ethan and Ivy, proved to be incredibly reliable. I fell for him all over again. When I told him, he joked, "Then how about showing your gratitude with food? Make my favorite pork cutlets tonight as a family. We've overcome difficulties and will surely face more in the future, but with James and Eliana by my side, I want to support each other as a family." I am Emily, aged 35, and for the past decade, I've devoted my life to homemaking. My partner in this journey was Michael, a doctor. Despite our lack of children, we found contentment in our shared existence. However, the tranquility was shattered one day when Michael arrived home late, delivering a proclamation that would mark the end of our 10-year marriage. "It's over for us, Emily," he declared. Bewildered, I questioned him about the sudden revelation. Michael, habitually returning late, dropped a bombshell. He had decided to marry his mistress, and divorce was imminent. Shocked, I exclaimed, "Marry your mistress? What are you talking about?" Michael asserted his decision, emphasizing that our union lacked the foundation of love. Our marriage was orchestrated by his parents, who deemed me a suitable match. We tied the knot hastily, knowing little about each other beyond sharing a common last name. People might call it fate that we shared the same surname, and in the whirlwind of surrounding marriages, I succumbed to the notion marrying him. Our union, though not built on love, endured for a decade. Little did I anticipate that Michael would abruptly opt for a divorce. I confronted him about the betrayal, demanding to know when he started betraying me. Michael insisted it wasn't betrayal, revealing that he met his mistress, a nurse in our hospital, a year ago. Enthralled by her charm and caring nature, he was drawn to her. The revelation left me incredulous. Despite our marriage's lack of love, I never imagined Michael's callous desire to marry another woman. He demeaned our shared history, expressing disdain for my role as a homemaker. His words cut deep, stating that he found me boring and that living with me for 10 years was hell. I agreed to the divorce, shocked at his callousness. We discussed the legalities later, But Michael dropped another bombshell. He never submitted our marriage registration. We were not legally married. We were merely cohabitants. His elaborate scheme, formed during our initial agreement, ensured that he maintained control over all official matters. As the reality sank in, I realized that the life I thought I had built was nothing more than an illusion. Michael had strategically kept our marriage unregistered to secure financial control. The 10 years we spent together seemed like a cruel joke, orchestrated by someone I thought I knew. I was meant to be with you, and you should have rejected the marriage proposal from the beginning. But I couldn't. My parents are stubborn and wouldn't listen. If I had refused, I wondered what would have happened. Besides, I needed a housekeeper. As a busy doctor, I couldn't handle household chores. So I decided to marry you for practical reasons, as a housekeeper. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. You had a good place to live and meals without the burden of work. It seemed like a fair deal, especially since you appeared eager to get married, perhaps influenced by societal expectations. This 10-year relationship was a win-win situation for both of us, or so I thought. But it ends today. You should appreciate the good times we had, but now you have to live on your own without depending on others. And one more thing, don't inform my parents about our situation. If you do anything unnecessary, you know what will happen to your father. He has a contract with the hospital where he works, thanks to our marriage. I'm implying that I could sever that connection as a threat. In other words, I'm warning you not to take any actions I would find undesirable. He laughed, claiming it was my fault for being deceived, leaving me with nothing. However, unbeknownst to him, the one who would be left with nothing was him. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. "What's so funny all of a sudden?" he asked, puzzled. "I can't believe you became a doctor with that kind of knowledge," I retorted. Confused, he questioned, "What do you mean?" I had known about his mistress and the fact that he didn't submit our marriage registration all along. In fact, I had suspected his infidelity for the past 6 months, but lacked evidence to confront him. I had hired a private investigator to look into his affair. The investigator revealed 2 crucial pieces of information. First, there was evidence of my husband entering a hotel with a nurse from his workplace. Second, based on their conversations, there was a possibility that we were not legally married. "What does that mean?" I asked in disbelief. He explained, "I overheard your husband and his mistress at a cafe. They mentioned not needing to worry about alimony or property division because they never submitted a marriage registration." I couldn't believe it. We had been living as a married couple for 10 years, and the revelation that we might not be legally married was shocking. It explained why he never allowed me to handle any official procedures. This is too much. Am I just supposed to accept this? If we were never married from the start, there's nothing. I trailed off, grappling with the reality of our situation. "I can do more than you think," I asserted. Confused, my friend asked, "What do you mean?" I suggested, "Let's make him pay for deceiving you for 10 years. First, we need to prepare without him noticing." So, I initiated preparations with the investigator to hold my husband accountable. He had arrogantly claimed, "So what if you knew we were never married from the start? I don't need to take any responsibility." Mocking my supposed pitiful ignorance, he believed he was in the clear. However, I turned the tables on him. "You said I was pitiful for not knowing anything, but it seems you were the one who was pitiful," I retorted. I revealed a legal loophole. Our relationship, though never formally married, was considered a common law relationship on paper. I explained, in a common law relationship, you can actually claim alimony and divide property. Confused, he questioned, "What are these conditions?" I clarified. First, both parties must have the intention to marry. The second is living as if married, including sharing household life for over 3 years. We meet these criteria. I continued, "Even if you can claim alimony and property division, you're just an unemployed woman, planning to rely on your parents after being kicked out." With a smirk, I assured him, "Didn't I say I was preparing?" I've already found a job starting next month, and I've got my eye on a new place. Defeated, he stammered. But even if you can claim alimony and property division, do you not care what happens to your father if they want to break the contract? Unfazed, I replied, let's see if they'll break a contract just because the doctor's wife of 10 years was a lie. Try saying that to my father and see if we won't be affected. As I took out my phone to inform my parents of the impending end to our relationship, he panicked. You're not calling your parents, are you? I calmly stated, that's exactly what I'm doing. Our parents think we're still married. It's only natural to inform them if this relationship is ending. Surprisingly, he began to apologize to me, realizing the tables had turned. Please, let me talk to them. Don't call, he pleaded urgently. I raised an eyebrow, frustrated. Why? You know how strict my parents are. If they find out about this, I'm done. I retorted, what does that have to do with me? Are you asking me not to tell the truth because your parents are strict? Are you kidding? You could have refused the marriage from the start if you didn't intend to marry. After 10 years of a selfish marriage, you're afraid of your parents finding out. I can't accept such a convenient story. But I can't accept your story either. I'll make sure to tell both your parents and mine. I declared, and without hesitation, I called both sets of parents. All four were shocked upon hearing my story, leading to a prompt arrangement of a meeting at our house. I've heard everything over the phone. Is it true that you pretended to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration? Speak up, you foolish son, his father scolded. His response was a sheepish admission, it's true. I didn't submit it. His mother intervened. Why would you do such a thing? Didn't you think about how Emily would feel? I had no choice, he defended himself. No choice, you say? How can you even say that? It's actually your fault, Dad and Mom. I didn't want to get married yet. You started looking for a bride on your own, saying it was time I got married. You arranged meetings and tried to force a marriage on me. You're the one who agreed to the marriage, aren't you? I had to agree. If I had refused, you would have made a fuss about it. So I decided to get married, he explained, pointing the blame back at his parents. His father questioned, if you were resolved to marry, why didn't you submit the marriage registration? He cited an internet story. I read about a man in the same situation. He didn't want to marry but had to because of his parents. He lived a married life without submitting the registration and revealed the truth when he found someone he truly loved. That's appalling. What happened to that guy in the end? I asked. He's now married to the person he loves and has a real marriage. So, I too will marry my girlfriend and have a real marriage, he declared confidently. Then my parents spoke up. A real marriage, huh? Sure, you might not have had a love marriage, but do you remember what you said at the wedding? We will never forget to care for each other and build a home full of smiles. What did those words mean to you? What were we shown? We sent our daughter to you hoping for her happiness, but you deceived her for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. Did you build a home full of smiles? Now you're leaving her for another woman. Can someone who acts without a shred of care, even if they change partners, truly have a real marriage? He stammered, attempting to respond, but my father cut him off. I was happy you married our daughter, not just because you were a doctor. I thought she could build a happy home with someone as sincere as you, but it seems we were mistaken and deceived. And you threatened our daughter. If she told us about this, you'd cut off the contract with our company. Seriously. If you're going to threaten our daughter, we'll cut off the contract ourselves. Be warned. We will tell the truth when asked. Why? If you do that, there will be rumors at the hospital, my father warned. His face paled at the unexpected turn of events, and he pleaded, please wait. This is getting out of hand. Let's just talk. But my father-in-law, furious, wasn't having it. Don't mess with us, he declared, grabbing my husband by the collar. We didn't raise you to be such a scoundrel. What were you thinking? Father, please stop. By not submitting the marriage registration, you might have thought you were doing yourself a favor, but because of your selfish actions, Emily was strung along for 10 years. I interjected, my voice firm. What were you thinking, causing such trouble to others? The living room fell silent as my father-in-law confronted my husband with these stern words. Faced with the weight of those accusations, my husband had nothing more to say. I spoke up, addressing my in-laws. Emily and your parents, I'm truly sorry for the trouble caused by this idiot. No, you parents shouldn't apologize. It's not your fault. However, it's partly our responsibility as parents for letting him act this way. For now, we'll take him home and make sure he doesn't continue his reckless behavior. We'll deal with the aftermath properly. We're very sorry for all this, my father-in-law admitted. With that, my husband was taken away by his parents, back to his childhood home. You've been through a lot. For now, you should come back home and rest. We'll think about what to do next later. You don't need to worry about anything right now, my parents assured me, expressing their concern. Thank you, but I won't go back home yet. I still have things I need to do. I declined their offer and chose to stay in my own home. What I had to do was prepare for the final settlement with my now ex-husband, gathering evidence for our common law relationship. I was getting ready to claim alimony and divide our assets. A few weeks later, a meeting with a lawyer was arranged. However, even if I agreed to alimony, my ex-husband couldn't accept the idea of dividing his property. Why should I divide my property? She's been a homemaker for 10 years, never working a day. All the furniture, clothes, food. I paid for everything. Now you're telling me to hand over the money I worked hard for? The furniture I bought? He ranted, unable to accept that his money would be shared with me. The lawyer explained, yes, that's correct. The money you earned and the furniture are subject to property division. Why does it have to be like that? Who did the housework while you were working? Who cooked meals with the groceries you bought? He argued. That's irrelevant now. No, it's very relevant. A homemaker is entitled to property division because housework and childcare have economic value. Speaking as a human, not just a lawyer, do you think housework is something anyone can do? That it's just expected of a homemaker? The reason you could live freely is because of her support. Don't get that wrong, the lawyer asserted. He was taken aback, and in frustration, he said, and this situation is a result of your actions, yet you have the audacity to be selfish. The lawyer responded, what do you say? Never mind. Anyway, she's entitled to half of the assets for property division. That's how it is. Regarding alimony, we intend to claim $100,000 from you, the lawyer continued. $100,000? Why so much for a relationship that wasn't even a marriage? He protested. It's precisely because you weren't married. Normally, alimony claims in common law relationships range from $10,000 to $40,000. However, in your case, you pretended to be married for 10 years and selfishly tried to kick her out when you found someone else. The amount is determined by the severity and duration of your actions. But still, you may think 10 years is just a short time, but it's longer than you realize. During that time, she devoted herself to you, believing you were a married couple. You have no right to complain after betraying her, the lawyer explained, presenting a strong case. Unable to counter this argument, he reluctantly agreed to my demands. I also sent a notice of claim for alimony to his mistress, thanks to the investigator who revealed her identity. As he had said, she was a nurse working at the same hospital. In a panic after being served with the alimony claim from me, she confronted him at the hospital with the notice I had sent. Wait a minute. This isn't what you told me. What do you want? I told you not to talk to me at the hospital. I got this from your wife. You said there wouldn't be any alimony because we weren't married. What's this all about? She questioned him. I later learned that their confrontation at the hospital had sparked quite a scene. Okay. Let's talk about this later, not here. There are too many people around. We'll both be in trouble if this turns into a rumor. He tried to defuse the situation. I don't care about that. I can't pay this kind of alimony. You said it was okay, so you should pay it for me. What? I won't pay a penny. You were the one who wanted this relationship. You said I was the only one for you, that you wanted to marry me. Hey, quiet down. Everyone can hear us. Just so you know, I'm not in the wrong here. If you want to make amends with your wife, do it yourself. Tell her I don't owe her a penny, that you'll take care of everything. Wait, hold on. This exchange led to the revelation of their affair to the entire hospital. It quickly became the talk of the place. Then, the final blow was my father's request to the hospital. I apologize, but we would like to terminate our contract at the end of next month. The hospital, aware of the rumors, asked my father, "Excuse me for asking, but is the reason for canceling the contract related to Dr. Michael's affair? It's already become a rumor." Yes, a nurse presumed to be involved caused quite a scene. I never imagined he had been pretending to be married for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration. I never expected it to turn out like this. You mean he never submitted the registration? Weren't you aware that he hadn't submitted the marriage registration? All we knew was that he, being married, had an affair. What do you mean he didn't submit the marriage registration? With my father's request, it was revealed that he had been deceiving me for 10 years by not submitting the marriage registration. This news spread among the other nurses. Dr. Michael deceived his wife for 10 years without submitting a marriage registration, and he had an affair with a nurse. How low? How could he do that? Can someone really not notice for 10 years? Apparently, Emily's maiden name was the same, and he managed all the official paperwork. That's scary. The rumors spread not only among hospital staff, but also to patients, and both Michael and his mistress received cold stares. Unable to endure, they soon resigned from the hospital. As my father told me, "Did you manage to get the alimony?" Yes, I received payments from both him and his mistress. She refused to pay until the end, claiming she was deceived. But the lawyer made it clear her argument wouldn't hold, and she reluctantly agreed to pay. That's good. What about you, Dad? Did the contract get canceled after all? No, that's off the table. He resigned, and since our company is trusted, the hospital asked us not to cancel the contract. We couldn't cancel it after they asked like that. That's a relief. Then I started a new life in a new place and was living happily. About a year and a half later, my ex-husband contacted me. "Is it true you got remarried?" I had married a man I met at work, and somehow he had found out. I wondered whose number this was, going through the trouble of changing your number just to contact me. Just answer my question. Yes, I got married. You betrayed me. Betray. We were never legally married, so I didn't think it would matter to you, right? That's a different matter. Indeed, things are different now. We're completely separated, so my marriage has nothing to do with you. Is that why you contacted me? After I said this, he seemed at a loss for words. Then he taunted. Of course, you're still unmarried, since you probably haven't submitted a marriage registration again. You're that kind of woman. But things weren't as he imagined. Unfortunately for him, my husband isn't the kind of person to do such terrible things. He knows all about your story. So to ensure I wouldn't feel anxious, we went to the office together to submit the registration. Sadly for you, things aren't as you thought. I can somewhat understand your wish for me to be unhappy, considering your own misery. But sorry, we're happily married. I told him this and hung up the phone. What kind of life he leads now, I don't know. But unless he changes his selfish nature, it's unlikely he'll ever find happiness. Please ensure the loan repayment, will you? While I was at work, an unexpected email popped up. Upon hastily reaching out to him, Greg calmly began to explain. Oh, sorry about that. I've fallen for someone else and decided to start a new life with her. Furthermore, he revealed his plan to take the luxury car recently purchased in my name with a loan. Despite my attempts to dissuade him, my husband ignored me, abruptly ended the call, and became unreachable. In the end, Greg disappeared with his mistress, leaving behind a substantial debt. As a mother to our 10-year-old son, I never envisioned such an unfair situation. I found myself at a loss, unsure of what to do, my mind going blank. At 35 years old, my name is Hannah, and my husband Greg is the same age. We were a family of 3, including our intelligent 10-year-old son Ryan. Ryan had displayed remarkable intelligence from a young age, reading papers on the computer and seeking my opinion on complex topics. In contrast, Greg was unstable, never holding down a steady job. Despite my full-time job and concerns about our future, Greg had recently maintained a stable income for 3 years. Lately, Greg spoke of making memories as a family, leading us to decide on buying a $35,000 camper van. However, due to Greg's inability to pass the finance company's loan review, I ended up taking the loan for the car. On the eagerly awaited delivery day of the camper van, I received an abrupt email from Greg stating he would graciously take the delivered van since the loan was in my name and I would handle the repayments. Confused, I called my husband immediately, only to hear him confess, "Well, I've fallen in love with another woman and decided to date her. I intended it to be just a fling, but it turned serious, so I'm thinking of starting over my life with her." Bye. He mentioned the divorce papers we had discussed during a previous fight, declared he would file them, and unilaterally ended the call. This exchange marked the first time I realized I had been betrayed by Greg, a shocking blow. Subsequent attempts to contact him yielded no response. When I returned home from work and checked the drawer where the divorce papers should have been, they were already gone, leaving me burdened with a significant debt from a $35,000 car loan. Despite my repeated attempts to reach out to my husband through emails and calls, I never received a reply. Ryan, noticing my unusual behavior, came to check on me with concern after dinner. "Mom, what's wrong? You haven't been eating much lately. Are you okay?" Yeah, maybe. I'm just tired." When people lie, they look up to the right. Lying is bad. I've noticed Dad hasn't been home for 3 days. Did something happen between you two?" Startled by Ryan's sharp words, I took a deep breath to calm myself. Feeling that I could no longer hide the truth, I decided to tell Ryan everything. "I see. It's just like Dad to do something like that. Aren't you sad?" "No, I kind of understood from how things were going." Ryan, seemingly foreseeing the future, appeared unconcerned about our parents' divorce, but I knew he must feel sad about it in his heart. While silently apologizing to Ryan in my mind, I worked desperately, trying not to think about the dreadful events. However, my body was honest, and gradually my health deteriorated. There was a training session planned at work that day, but I couldn't stand up and ended up squatting down. "Sorry, I can't stand up right now. I need to take a break." I heard my colleagues' voices full of concern, but I couldn't respond and collapsed. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a hospital room. I received a diagnosis from the doctor that I needed detailed examinations, and I was admitted to the hospital. Hannah thought, "I feel so pathetic. It's supposed to be just emotional stress." Looking at the IV drip in my arm and the white ceiling of the hospital room, tears naturally started to flow. At that moment, Ryan, who is usually calm, rushed into the room with an extremely worried look, prompting me to quickly wipe away my tears. "Mom, what happened? Is it serious? You're not going to die, right?" "Of course not. I wouldn't leave my dear son alone." That's good, really. I was called by the school teacher and told that you were taken to the hospital." I was so shocked. My heart nearly stopped. Ryan is usually mature for his age, but he's still only 10. I felt a strong resolve to get better for his sake, but my condition was worse than I thought, and I was diagnosed with a serious illness. The doctor advised, "You should have surgery as soon as possible. Please make a decision quickly, following the doctor's advice." I underwent surgery, and by the time I was discharged, it had been a month since Greg had left. When I returned home and opened the mailbox, I found a demand letter for the car loan payment. Hannah thought the repayment should have been automatically deducted from my account. In panic, I checked the account balance with my cash card, and the balance, originally $20,000, was now only $33.90. Hannah thought, Greg did this. I want to ask him to return the money, but I can't contact him. What should I do? Since I don't have the camper van, I can't sell it. After Greg left, everything seemed to be going in a bad direction, and my mood sank deeper. Seeing me saddened by my series of misfortunes, Ryan put his hand on my forehead. You look pale. Are you feeling sick again? You don't seem to have a fever, though. I'm fine physically, but you see, your father not only took the car, but also all the money we had saved. I can't work yet due to my physical condition, and now we have no money. I'm at a loss. I see. Then I'll deliver newspapers, and I'll search the internet to see if there's any work I can do. Encouraged by my 10-year-old son, I told myself that it wasn't the time to be down. Sorry for worrying you. I can't afford to be weak. I'll change my mindset and try to do whatever I can, I said, smiling at him. Ryan also smiled back and then said something unexpected. Let's plan how to get the car back from Dad. How can we do that? The camper van is in your name, right? Yes, but what about it? Then maybe we can? Ryan suggested an idea that I couldn't even imagine. I had never thought such an idea could exist. Also, I have no idea where your father is. Then let's check on my phone. A month ago, once when we went hiking as a family, surprisingly, Ryan, who is usually very reliable, got lost. At that time, we bought a kid's cell phone on Ryan's suggestion and installed a GPS app on it, which both Greg and I could access. With this app, I can see where Dad is in real time, and he's been moving around a lot. Oh, is that so? But what if we find him, and he just says something vague and escapes again? As I pondered this, Ryan smiled and made an intriguing suggestion. Don't worry, I've already taken precautions. What did you just say? To my astonishment, Ryan had acted independently while I was in the hospital, achieving something unbelievable. I thought, I can't believe such a smart child came from me. Understanding Ryan's words, I was simply amazed. He had even caught wind of Greg's mistress. All right, let's teach Dad who betrayed us a lesson. Okay, let's start the plan right away. Together, my son and I prepared for that moment. Hannah thought, with Ryan by my side, I'm invincible. Bring it on, anywhere, anytime. 3 days later, my phone rang. Ah, it's me. Please, I need your help. Oh, who might this be? Don't play dumb. It's your husband. Obviously, I'm being questioned by the police about you. At this rate, they might ask me to come to the police station voluntarily. Help me out. Oh, is that so? Just wait a moment then. I immediately went with my son to where Greg was, and to my surprise, it was a forest park near our house where camping was possible. Greg was being questioned by the police in front of his car, looking bewildered. Feeling pathetic, I sighed and told the police we needed to have a talk as a couple and asked them to leave for a while. At that time, Greg seemed uncomfortable being watched by the people around us and urged Ryan and me to get into the car. Inside the car, Greg's mistress was sitting cross-legged, glaring at us, but that was no longer important. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming. But why did the police suddenly show up at my place? I don't get it. That's because I filed a report about the missing camper van. What? Why would you do that? It's obvious, isn't it? My car was stolen. Greg, foolishly thinking that actions between spouses can't be criminal, was saying nonsensical things. But the world isn't that naive, you know. You filed for divorce, remember? Forgot? So we are strangers now, and you're driving a stranger's car without permission. That's a crime. Ryan figured all this out. Typical, sharp as ever, that kid. But I didn't steal the car. I just borrowed it for a bit. Oh, is that so? Well, I'd like to use my car now. So could you return it? That would be really helpful. As I reached out my hand, asking Greg to return the keys, he reluctantly handed them over after confirming it was returned. Ryan quietly started talking. Hey, why did you abandon your family and choose to play around with this woman? Caught off guard by his son's unexpected question, Greg was flustered and awkwardly scratched his head. Seeing this, Greg's mistress chuckled smugly and started talking. "It's because I'm more attractive than your mother. Look at me, you can see it, right?" He fell head over heels for me and decided to leave his family. "Quiet. I didn't ask you, old lady. Dad, you answer." Mandy was silenced by Ryan's stern tone, but Greg remained quiet. "If you can't explain, that's fine. I'll just have the police come back and arrest you." "Wait, hold on." Okay, I'll talk. Mandy, it turns out, joined Greg's company 3 months ago. They were attracted to each other and became involved at the welcome party for new employees. Later, it was discovered that Mandy was pregnant, and Greg decided to start a new life with her, leaving us behind. "Why did you take the camper van?" "I quit my job and thought about selling the car for money. But it seems like you were using it quite a bit, weren't you?" "I thought it was a waste to sell it right away, so we decided to go on a trip." "Wait, how do you know all this?" "Remember when Ryan got lost? After that, as a precaution, we bought him a kid's cell phone and installed a GPS app. Did you forget? We installed it on your phone too, so I knew where you were all this time. By the way, I later found out from Ryan that he had pretended to get lost during our family hike because he wanted a cell phone. I was amazed at Ryan's ability to think and act so strategically. I suspected something was off with Dad, so I came up with this plan to monitor his actions." "You really are a terrifying child. I will never become an adult like you, Dad, who betrays important people without a second thought." Greg, faced with the hard truth Ryan told, was a pitiful adult unable to offer any rebuttal. In contrast, seeing Ryan, only 10 but able to think and speak his mind firmly, gave me a sense of strength as a mother. I felt I couldn't lose, especially in settling things properly. "Also, return the $20,000 you withdrew from my account right now. That was our joint property as a couple." "I don't have to return it." "No, it's not that. The money was what I saved little by little since I was single after all. You always quit your jobs midway, so we hardly ever saved money together, did we?" I was appalled to hear that the $20,000 had been squandered by Greg and his mistress. It was the moment I felt relieved about divorcing him. "So that's how it is. But if you stole and used the car and my money, that's going to be a serious crime." "What? I just sent the police away, so it's not their business anymore, right? I only said we would talk. I have no intention of withdrawing the complaint. I must add the theft of my money to the report. Mom, should I call the police now? I can do it with just one button on my phone." Mandy, Greg's mistress, had been watching our conversation but quickly tried to get out of the camper van. At that moment, she let out a scream that echoed around. The reason was that outside the car door, Mandy's parents were standing there, faces red with anger, about to explode in fury. Startled, she stepped back as her parents yelled at her. "Ah, I'm sorry. Don't be so angry. But why are you here, Mom and Dad?" "I called your parents beforehand." "What? Why?" The truth was, during my hospital stay, Ryan had visited Greg's office and tearfully told him, "My dad left the house with a woman we don't know, and my mom collapsed." Seeing Ryan's sorrowful and frail state, the people at Greg's office suspected Mandy, who had left the company with Greg, and gave Ryan her parents' address. Greg and Mandy had been overly friendly at the office, and there were photos showing them together at the welcome party for new employees, looking like a couple. After learning from the office people that you commuted from your parents' house, Mandy's parents were standing there, faces red with anger. "I went there with your photo, and your parents came out when I visited. Then I told them everything that had happened. So today, I contacted Mandy's parents and asked them to wait nearby for a while." "How could you do this to me?" "The worst." "I don't want to hear that from you." That's my line. "By the way, your stomach seems quite big. When is the baby due?" "In 3 months." "What? Wait a minute. That doesn't add up with when you met my husband. You two met only 3 months ago, right? What's going on? It's not time for the baby to be born yet." Greg, hearing this for the first time, stared at Mandy, eyes wide. Wait, what does that mean? Are you stupid? Don't you get it? It takes about 9 months from conception to birth, which means the child she's carrying isn't yours. You're so foolish. What do you mean, Mandy? Have you been deceiving me? Ah, I almost got away with it. Can't help it now that I'm caught. You're so naive. You can't see through lies at all. Really, a fool. Don't mock me. My whole life is ruined because of you. What were you thinking? Greg and Mandy started an ugly argument, but nobody intervened, letting them have it out. Meanwhile, we contacted the police again to explain the situation. As it began to get dark, the forest park was brightly lit by the red lights of the police cars. No, really, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. I'm sorry. I'll work hard and never cheat again, so please just don't arrest me, Dad. People don't change that easily, especially lazy people like you. Exactly, Ryan's right. I can't trust you at all. Reflect on your actions and pay for your crimes at the police station. If I get arrested, I won't be able to pay back the money. Is that okay with you? I don't mind. Pay me back after you've atoned for your sins. Take your time, don't worry. I've already found you a place to work. Let's see, there's Ryan's child support plus the $220,000 you stole from me. I'm not sure how much it will all add up to, but you'll work and pay it all back. I had one last thing to say to Mandy the mistress. You might think you're just an onlooker, but don't forget you're an accomplice to Greg's theft. Be prepared for that. When I told them that Mandy would have to pay if Greg couldn't return the stolen money, she shivered in fear. Mandy asked her parents for help, but they refused, saying, "We disown a daughter who causes trouble for others." Thus, Greg and Mandy were taken away in a police car together. Thanks to Ryan's smart strategy, we were able to punish Greg and his mistress, Mandy. Though they were released from detention soon after, they faced a hefty payment to me. Through a lawyer, I claimed $20,000 in damages. Additionally, I made Greg agree to pay $500 a month in child support for Ryan. I introduced Greg to a subcontracting factory of the company I work for. The support and other charges I claimed from Greg would be deducted from his salary and paid into my account. I also sold the camper van and was freed from the auto loan. Since then, my health has improved remarkably, and I am now energetically committed to my job. Ryan has been actively helping with household chores and errands. I want to keep moving forward strongly so that Ryan can pursue the path he loves without giving up.